Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Market Watch, where yesterday's price is not today's price. 2 weeks ago, the day before Thanksgiving, we did a 4-round startup mock draft. We're going to pick that up rounds 5 through 8 today. So, Brian, here in a second, I want you to give me kind of the best available. Before we get to that, you can listen to this episode on YouTube, and you can see we have the draft board all set up so you can see. Also, on the Twitter feed, we'll have a screenshot of the draft board. I think it'd be helpful as you're listening to this to kind of have something to look at so that you can follow along. I think as we get through rounds 5 through 8, we're probably not going to read through every single player that each team has. So, like I said, we did 4 rounds. We did it before Thanksgiving. Brian, give us a sense of what the best available is as we go into round 5. Also, are there any guys, like I know Bucky Irving is one where he might have gone in round 4, but he kind of popped after that. But just kind of give us a sense of the best available here.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of run down quickly the top couple in each position. So we have Tua, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, quarterbacks. We got Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Mixon, Bucky, Monty, James Cook, bunch of running backs. We didn't touch a lot of running backs in the first 4 rounds. Wide receiver, we got Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Dunze, Downs, Tyreek Waddle, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp. Still a bunch of good players.
Rashee Rice did go 308. Just quick correction.
Okay. All right. So we got a bunch of receivers available. We got Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Roma Dunze, Josh Downs, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, DJ Moore. So a bunch of good receivers still available. And then we got wrap it up, tight end, Kittle, Hawk, Laporta, Andrews, Njoku, Kelsey, Jonnu, et cetera, et cetera. So
Jonnu, I can't believe that Jonnu's name is making into this conversation.
It's going to get murky, but I think he deserves it. I mean,
yeah. So if you're just wanting to get onto the draft and you just want to hear who goes at 501, maybe fast forward to like the 7-minute mark. But I do want to kind of just run through and talk about these first 4 rounds, talk about some of the builds a little bit. And like Matt, you took Bowers at the 105. I think you got a little bit of pushback from that on Twitter. I love the pick. I think that he has justification to go maybe higher at some point. It's tough. Like Allen went 1, Lamar 2, Jefferson 3, Chase 4. Bowers at 5. That seems like it's the right spot to me.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I mean, like I said when we did the draft, I think he has a strong argument as the single most irreplaceable fantasy players or fantasy asset is how I would say it. Maybe like not the best, maybe not the most valuable, but he's one of one. I think McBride is close, but I think as our board kind of indicates, McBride is a solid tier behind him. And, for Jefferson, there's a Chase. For Josh Allen, there's a Lamar. For Bijan Robinson, there's maybe a Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley. I don't think there's any equivalent to Brock Bowers. I think McBride's close, but not quite there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm not knocking the pick or Brock Bowers, but I do think you bought at his ceiling. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing here because what you're saying, he is looking like a one-of-one product, but I just don't see how he goes higher than this.
My pushback would be that like every guy in like the top five, like how can they really go much higher? Like, I mean,
right.
Chase, right.
So you're buying at ceiling.
Yeah, I think that Bowers, I think there's a justification, like Matt said, that at some point we could be talking about Bowers going 1. If you went back to like 2019 Kelsey and you were like, hey, you're going to get this Kelsey run. I mean, he also started at a lot older age than what Bowers is doing. I don't know. I'm on the side that I can see a ceiling of 101 for Bowers because of what Matt said. There's no comparable other option.
And I'll say this as someone who makes a lot of trades, people get angry when you try and trade for Brock Bowers off their team. Like, even if you send a good offer, like one of the trades I tried a couple weeks ago, I offered Rasheed Rice, Bucky Irving, and Khalil Shakir for Brock Bowers, and the guy just said "fuck off." Like, and I was like, "Damn, I didn't think that was that bad of a trade or bad of an offer." Like, maybe at least send me a counter. Maybe I'll throw an extra first in there.
Yeah, I think he's probably worth like 3 firsts, and there's probably a lot of people that it's like 4 first value, where I'm not even gonna respond to you. Just something absolutely outrageous.
I mean,
so kind of shifting
think
gear. Go ahead.
I think we all know how this feels, that like the people that have Brock Bowers right now either hit on him in the draft, and that is like crack, or they just traded a boatload for him at some point. Those are like the 2 outcomes, I think, that people that right now have Brock Bowers. So like, to Matt's point, like the fuck off guy, like I think that's probably one of the 2 outcomes that caused that.
Yeah.
Well, that and also, like I said, I really do think the kind of scarcity of elite tight end, like, Laporta disappointed, Kincaid disappointed, Andrews fell off for a little bit, Kittle's older, McBride's close again, but I do think people are thinking, okay, if I trade Bowers away, I can't really get that piece back. I have to kind of shift my whole team building philosophy or whatnot. But outside of the Bowers thing, I think the other thing that would be notable here, when we did the first 4 rounds a couple weeks ago, Todd, you picked 3rd overall, and you took Jefferson 1 spot ahead of Jamar Chase. Brian, you ended up taking Jamar Chase at 104. With Jamar Chase just absolutely going nuclear the last few weeks, Todd, would you reconsider that pick now? Like, if we were doing it now, would you take Chase ahead of Jefferson? Or
Yeah, so we're doing this draft as if we're drafting in the offseason. So we're not drafting for rest of season. If I was drafting a dynasty team where I got the rest of the year, without a doubt, I'm taking Chase 101 or Chase wide receiver 1. If we're starting it off in the offseason, they'd be tied for me. I'd probably lean Chase, but they're dead even. I don't really care. I mean, I just think Jefferson's an incredible talent. If we turn around in a year and Jefferson's wide receiver 1 overall, I think it's just going to kind of ping pong back and forth. So they're basically tied.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I view it. Whereas even as recently as 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was not like tier of his own Jefferson, but it was clear cut for me that I would take Jefferson, and now it's a lot murkier.
Yeah, I totally agree. So there's a few guys that we drafted. I mean, we talked about it in 2 weeks. There's a lot's changed kind of in the dynasty value landscape. So like Ken Walker was drafted in the 4th round, Taylor in the 4th round by me at the, 403. A couple of those guys might go a little later for me. CMC's gotten injured since then. Also, Breece Hall has kind of lost a little bit of overall value. Barkley's continued to be awesome. I'd probably move him up. Like I took Breece Hall, I believe. The 304. I would have taken at this point. I would rather have Barkley than Breece Hall. So I think there's just a few things that if you look at this draft board in hindsight, there's maybe some misses already. And that's just kind of what's crazy about the dynasty market values, is just how much they fluctuate week to week.
Yeah, completely agree. I was the one that took Ken Walker over JT with team 2 at 402. I would definitely reconsider that pick. I don't know if I would take JT. Maybe I, completely pivot.
Yeah, I think for both those teams, I had the next pick and I took JT. I don't think I would take either of them at that spot. So,
but overall, I think most
of
the rest of the board looks more or less how I would have it now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then last comment, I've already lied and said that we were going to start at the 7-minute mark. But the last comment that I would have is the teams where there was a 1st round quarterback, they make me a little bit uncomfortable. And I think all of my teams, I went wide receiver round 1, but then I had a couple where I went quarterback round 2. No, I took Jaden Daniels, team 6. Jaden Daniels followed up by Kyler Murray. And that team I just don't feel good about that build. That team went Jaden Daniels, Kyler, London, CMC. And I'm not loving that one. But the teams that went wide receiver round one, I feel a lot better. I feel like you can get quarterback in the second, third, fourth round. I think my favorite build, though, is to just go wide receiver, or wide receiver, running back. Like the team 7 with Lamb, Gibbs, Barkley, then Richardson. I like that one a lot. So I think that it's fun to look at this and kind of think about it from a roster construction standpoint. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from doing this exercise the first time is just the roster construction build of what I like and don't like.
Yeah, I'm still kind of torn on that because I'm someone that outside of Bowers, I took Lamar in the first round, which I would do again, but then I took Love and Hurts with the 111 and 202. I mean, I would probably take Puka over Love if I had to do that over, just because, like you said, the difference between like wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 12 is a lot greater than QB5 versus QB12, it seems like, just looking at the board. So I think there's some merit to that.
Yeah. And like you mentioned Lamar at 2, you'd still do that one. I think my preference would be either Jefferson or Chase at 102. I know, Brian, you're in a startup right now, and I think you did something similar to that.
Yeah, I had 104, and Jaden Daniels went 101, and then it was Jamar Chase 102. Josh Allen, I thought I was going to potentially have dropped me at 104. That would have been pleasant. 103 was Josh Allen, and then I had the choice of Jefferson or Lamar. And I learned something about myself today, that I am pro wide receiver over quarterback in every situation but Josh Allen. That's where I'm at. So I took Justin Jefferson.
Cool. All right, let's get it started. 501. Matt, you're showing as the person on the clock, but I believe that is my squad. And it's the 3 wide receivers with 1 running back build. Probably my favorite team that I've put together of any of these squads. So 501, let's kick it off. So like you said, Brian, let me get your best available that you put together, or Matt, you put together. So this team is kind of ready to take a quarterback. You've got Goff, Tua, Baker all on the board. I think this team is gonna just stick with the theme here and stay away. And we're gonna go with Bucky Irving 501.
Yeah,
Could make
makes
an
a lot of
argument.
sense.
Could make an argument for Kyron. I think in the last few games, Kyron's maybe a little bit more uncomfortable with the emergence of Blake Corum, but Kyron keeps scoring touchdowns, so I don't know.
There's
I'm
another
always
running back on that list that I'm feeling pretty good about as well. That I would consider in that moment.
I'm always kind of torn on the Kyron thing. It doesn't feel like he should. It doesn't feel like he deserves to continue to get the workload that he does. But Sean McVay probably has a more informed opinion than I do about that matter, and so I guess we have to defer to him. And I don't think they're going to draft a running back after drafting Corum, so I think there's a good chance that Kyron has a similar workload next year. So I think he should go here pretty soon. So I'm up here with Team 11. Like I said, so this team drafted Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Trey McBride, and Devontae Smith. I do like this build a lot. I kind of understand what Todd was saying about the pitfalls of going QB right away, but I do like having Love and Hurts and McBride. So that way I feel like the rest of the draft, I can mostly just focus on running back and receiver. When I took Devontae Smith at 411, it was between 2 guys. It was between Devontae Smith and Josh Downs. So I am going to go ahead and take Josh Downs here at 502, which might be a little high for some people.
Yeah. I was going to say, just trying to find him in Sleeper's ADP is enough of a reach.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't even mention how, since it's kind of going into the off season, Sleeper's ADP is all out of whack right now, and everyone's listed equally. Brian, you and I are in a league where I traded away Drake London about a week ago, and I got Josh Downs plus back. And our buddy Dynasty Fever is his sleeper name. I believe his Twitter handle is also Dynasty Fever. And he's a loyal listener. He asked us to mention this trade on the podcast. So I am the 1 seed in that league. I have a playoff bye, and he is the 5 seed, I believe. So we're both playoff teams. I traded him Drake London. I got back Josh Downs, the 2025 202, Adonai Mitchell, and a mid to late third round pick. So Downs, Adonai Mitchell, 202, and a late third, let's call it.
So what I heard in my head was Downs in the 202 for London.
I'm not willing to write off Adonai as nothing. I think that maybe I'm listening to his wide receiver coach too much. I believe, is it Reggie Wayne?
It's Reggie Wayne. Yeah.
And he talks this fucking guy up all the time. The film people do like him. He gets open a lot. I guess he's kind of a knucklehead and sometimes freelances on routes, does his own thing. But I think he's got a lot of talent. So I he's definitely a guy I want it to throw into any type of trade.
I do love that you're getting 2 Colts in the trade. You're getting Downs and AD Mitchell all catching passes or catching errant or not catching errant passes from Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and I for better or worse, I'm someone who does not usually put too much weight in the situation. Like, if Richardson sucks, they're going to eventually figure that out and go in another direction. If Richardson is good, yeah, the pass volume isn't going to be like a Joe Burrow type offense, but I don't really care that much. Downs, to me, has already had some spike games with Anthony Richardson as his QB. I think Downs is basically good at everything a receiver needs to do. And the way I looked at it is like the two, like you said, 202, the Downs and 202 for London. To me, that was about even. All right, you give me Adonai Mitchell, you give me the third, and that's enough to sway me and let you take London. I'll take the extra pieces, and hopefully Downs keeps breaking out next year and closes the gap even further. That's how I looked at it.
All right, Team 10, Burrow, Garrett Wilson, Brian Thomas, and Dak Prescott, Brian.
This is a pretty easy pick for me.
This is
I'm going to go with Zay Flowers and keep on the wide receiver train. I just think that building out that core of wide receivers, 2, in my opinion, very stable, high upside quarterbacks. I'll figure out the running back situation, piecing together. I think there's quite a bit of depth, and honestly, a lot of people, I don't know if they still will, but in the past, they've undervalued the older and past producing players. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, so next team up, Team 9, took Nico, Bijan, Brees, and DK. This team's trying to win the league this year, 2025. It's trying to win the league. So this team is down to either Kyron for the RB3 and just be ready to dominate, or is it time for TJ Hawkinson so that it can be on the higher end with some of these other teams that have a tight end? That's what I'm kind of deciding between. I think I'm gonna go Kyron here. I think I'm gonna go Kyron because while I'm a really big Hawkinson fan, he's maybe a little bit concerned these last couple weeks. I think he's probably still trying to come back from injury. I'll probably still be the highest one on Hawkinson and take him maybe in this round, but I'm a little bit less bullish on him more than I had him a full tier above Laporta. And maybe that was not the right take, but basically to me, there's only Hawkinson, Laporta, Kittle, the tight ends that I feel really comfortable with. After that, you're kind of getting down to just all right, give me whoever I can get between Ingram and Joku, even down to Dallas Goedert or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was probably the right pick. I think that's a good call. I'm up next with Team 8, and this one's kind of weird because I really didn't want to take a third QB. When we did this at first, I just kind of went with best value, I thought, left on the board. But
I thought it
this
was
team
good
is,
value in round 4. Trevor Lawrence in round 4. I thought that was pretty good value.
Matt, are
yeah,
you setting up like a dialogue here that I didn't really want to take QB3, but I'm also going to take QB4?
no, I'm not going to take a QB. Luckily, there's no one to tempt me, really. Baker or Tua would probably be my choice, but that'd be a rough pick with this squad. This squad has Malik Neighbors, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. So there's a couple different ways I could go here. I was thinking about Laporta. I really do agree with you, Todd. I think Hawkinson should probably go here pretty soon. But I'm going to end up going with Rome Odunze here. I think he should go here pretty shortly, and I think he kind of fits with not taking a QB was really my only requirement, so he fits there. And I think he fits with this team overall.
I'm starting to kind of be more in on Robodunze, like as people I think are getting a little bit more concerned about him. I'm starting to like what I'm seeing, and I think when we hit the off season, I think his value probably just ticks up as you're not having to score points anymore. I'm pretty optimistic about what we could see from him next year.
Yeah, and the way I look at it, I haven't been overly impressed with his rookie year, but if I think Caleb is going to be really good, which I do, and I'm going to give Caleb the Shane Waldron pass, which I have most of the year, I kind of have to extend that same courtesy to Rome Odunze. I think that Keenan Allen's going to be gone after this year, but you never know. They could bring him back. And this is not an original thought. Many people have mentioned it, but even going back to when he was first drafted with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen on the team, there are a lot of pattern matches to JSN, who we have finally seen really start to break out to a big degree over the last few weeks. So I think the talent's there, the pedigree, the profile. I do think Caleb's going to figure it out. I don't really trust the Bears to not fuck up their next coaching hire, but, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, so this is Team 7 here, which I believe is your team, Brian.
And while Brian's thinking, I'm looking here, and we've had 10 running backs go off the board, and I've drafted 7 of them. I've been notoriously, since we started this podcast, the lowest on running backs at all times until apparently December of 2024, it only took us 16 months for me to become the highest on running backs. I've taken 7 of the 10 off the board here.
I mean, it is the year of the running back.
Matt's taken 1 of 10.
Staying on brand.
Dude hates running backs now. Matt's just waiting to save them for the Alvin Kamaras, the James Connors, the Aaron Joneses.
Well, and the one running back I took, we all kind of were like, that might be one of the worst picks, Ken Walker. So, that's why I stay away from them. They're just too volatile for me. Don't have the stomach for it, man.
With that, I'm going to take a receiver. I really like what's going on with this player recently, and I was just looking at some of his stats and his targets. Jordan Addison, to me, yeah, I'm going with a little bit off the beaten path here. He's scored a touchdown in 11 different games of his career. Within those 11, he's had multiple touchdown games. He's coming off of a massive game, a massive week before that. Close to double-digit targets the last 4 games apiece. I think they're figuring out a way to have him and Jefferson work together and maximize each other. And I think that's what I've been looking for. I'm less of a Hawkinson guy. I like Hawkinson, but it sounds like I'm less than both of you. So I'm taking a swing here, and I'm hoping that I get an elite player for a wide receiver 2 slot with my 5th round pick. So it kind of fits the same brand as the Anthony Richardson pick. It's a swing.
I think that's a good call. We've already seen in the first 4 rounds Devontae Smith and T. Higgins go off the board. I really do think that Jordan Addison is kind of quickly solidifying himself into a similar tier where they're next to an alpha wide receiver 1, but they've shown enough that they're going to be weekly starts. They're going to have spike games. They're going to produce a lot. Maybe they have a somewhat of a cap ceiling due to being the wide receiver 2 in their own offense. But I do think he should be going right around where you just took him. I don't think that's a reach at all.
Yeah, so if you're just kind of curious on what receivers are on the board here, you got Tyreek, you've got Jalen Waddle, Jaden Reed, Ayuk, Debo, DJ Moore. So, I mean, does Jerry Jeudy, does he get mentioned at this point? Is it too early to mention Jerry Jeudy after what he's done the last few weeks?
I think he's going to get drafted tonight.
I think he is definitely going to get drafted tonight. So, yeah. We wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago, though.
No. That's crazy.
Yeah, so this next team, I'm just going to be frank. I hate this next team. This is my team 6. Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, London. Obviously, CMC, when we did this draft, we're saying we're drafting for 2025. So the injury for him really doesn't hurt him that much for 2025. It probably just knocks down potential suitors for him, I guess. If you wanted to trade him, there could be some people that are just like, you know what, I'm done with CMC. So that's maybe your downside of what happened with the injury. This team, when you have 2 quarterbacks to start, in my opinion, when you go QB, that is kind of an indication that you're tanking, or you're willing to do like a 1-year all-in bid. So what is this team doing? Is it an all-in 1 or 2 year bid? I guess with CMC. So this is where I'm going to take. I think this is where I'm going to take Hawkinson, and I'm going to hope that 2025 he gets back to that high end level. So we've got our 2 QBs, we've got our receiver, we've got our elite running back, we've got our elite tight end, and now this team, maybe they got to burn their 25 first on a high end player, but I don't know. I don't love that squad.
I don't mind it, but I'm gonna always be a CMC apologist to a degree. I think your first 3 picks were totally fine. I wouldn't criticize any of them. CMC, I don't know.
Just a reminder, we did this draft before he got hurt. So
yeah,
he got hurt, and then now that doesn't look so great.
I
think he probably would have gone in round 5, though, right? I mean, he would have gone somewhere around here, even with.
I would have ended up taking him somewhere. And
I mean, I've seen some wild CMC trades the last week. One, he went straight up for Garendo, and I lost my fucking mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
because that's just like it's a league ruiner type of trade, in my opinion. Just based off of value and being stupid, and then he got hurt. Yeah, but he was fucking. I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah,
I was hot.
Well, in the league that you're in, Brian, I did trade away CMC for the first time in a while. Actually, I traded CMC and Devin Singletary, which is nothing to me. I got back Njoku and Rashad White. Not the greatest return, but to your point, Brian, from all the other CMC trades I've been seeing, I saw him go straight up for David Montgomery. That was a better return than I've seen a lot of people get. So I figured, I could use playoff points on a playoff team.
I could see the thought process behind a trade for like Monty or that type of like, mix in or something like that like is a very clear, very strong, short term, at least win now type of player that maybe has some longevity. But like a Grendo, who's the third string running back and was
Yeah,
hurt his
that's
entire college career, and because he looked good in 6 carries the week before, it was baffling to me.
all right. I'm up with Team 5, the Brock Bowers team. This team has Bowers, Caleb Williams, Rashee Rice, and JJ McCarthy. Pretty volatile team. A lot of range of outcomes here.
Just a
And
comment. So these next 5 teams, 3 of them have 2 quarterbacks, 2 of them have 1. Best quarterbacks available are Goff, Baker, and Tua. Then after that, we fall off the map. It's like maybe Darnold after that, and it's kind of ugly. So there's kind of like 3 reliable quarterbacks on the board. Just if you're kind of following along and wondering about the quarterback situation here.
You got the 3 olds too, Cousins, Stafford, and Geno. But
yeah, you're a braver man than I am if you're.
Oh well, that's certainly a tier behind, but like that's
Yeah.
like after that we have no starting quarterbacks left.
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
much.
at this point, I definitely have Penix ahead of Cousins in my rankings.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think this might be the first surprise pick of the 5th round, because I don't think any of the picks so far were all that surprising. And I'm going to kind of lean into the volatility of this team. And I'm going to take Chase Brown here.
Okay, so when we were talking CMC a minute ago, I didn't want to belabor the point, but I thought about asking the question, CMC or Chase Brown.
I think
so now I'll ask it.
He was firmly my pick. Right, I'm the pick next after you. That was 100% my pick.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't too surprising.
Yeah, so Chase Brown, I think the one thing we got to remember is, they brought Zach Moss in. Zach Moss gets hurt. Now he's the guy, and he's looked awesome as the guy. I think most likely they're going to draft some 3rd, 4th round running back, kind of like what happened to Rashad White, like a Bucky Irving type. And either that guy's going to come in and maybe suck, kind of like what Kyron Williams dealt with Blake Corum. And then Chase Brown's just going to continue being the guy, and we're going to move him up. Or that guy's going to eat into some of his workload, and it's going to be like a 50-50 deal. And we're like, Chase Brown, let's move him down to like the 6th or the 7th round. Chase Brown looks really good, though. Like, really good. So I'm kind of getting more bullish on him. It's going to be tough to buy him early in the offseason. But, like, if they were to draft someone, call it like the 4th round or something in the NFL draft, at that point, I will probably go in and try to buy some Chase Brown.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't really – it's something I've been kind of wondering myself too, because I want to buy more Chase Brown, and I don't know when the most ideal time to go strike up that negotiation would be. I don't know if it's like right after the season. I don't know if it's like a week before the NFL draft when
I did buy him just a week or so ago before a trade deadline.
So did I.
I paid 2 mid-2s and Trey Benson.
Yeah,
I paid 2 2s.
So you guys
about pretty much
basically paid the same thing almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brian, didn't your trade have a throw-in of some sort?
Oh, yeah. Kendre Miller. So same thing,
okay.
like a toss-in running back and 2
toss-in
2s.
running back. Yeah.
Yep. I felt great about that. I would have done that in 90% of my leagues if I could.
I felt the same way. So actually, whenever I was going out running back shopping, it's interesting. I was trying to get Breece Hall. I was trying to get him for my brother, and the price was just getting too high. And so I looked around the league and I said, okay, who can I get that's not going to cost me as much as Breece Hall? And I said, Chase Brown. Also, he's probably going to outproduce Breece Hall the rest of the year. So I went and got Chase Brown at like a quarter of the price. And who's gonna produce more next year? Like, I don't know. Like Chase Brown could.
It's a legitimate question, I think. I mean, I don't think Chase Brown is going to have the same role. To your point, Todd,
Yeah,
I do expect him to bring in some competition. But I mean, if he gets like 70% of the touches in a Joe Burrow offense, especially with them using him in the passing game, that's to me like what separates him from someone like Kyron Williams, where he's not necessarily touchdown dependent, or needing to get a whole lot of like 20 plus touches, he can get his 5-6 catches in a game and produce that way. So
I was gonna say he's not Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's like that type of player that like he can do a lot of damage with less touches and be like super effective and efficient.
I mean, if he had gone in round 1 of the NFL draft like Jahmyr Gibbs did, he's
he would be up there
probably
with,
going in like round 3 or so with like
so I was thinking as long as he has a 10 to 15 touches a game, I'm happy with him, especially if you're not paying an arm and a leg right now, which I don't think you are. But right now, to your point, this season we're not drafting for that, but just like for people that are maybe still in a league that doesn't have a trade deadline or a later trade deadline, like you're going to get 20, 25 touches with his role right now. And he's super explosive and an awesome offense and a weird defense that his team. So like they're going to have a lot of fun games, we'll say.
Yeah, it's not like that defense is going to get so much better next year either.
Right.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say on Chase Brown, the only trade that I've seen recently for him, Cousin Pat did pay a late first for Chase Brown.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
when I went to make an offer for Chase Brown, in that
Mhm.
when I sent 2 2s and Trey Benson, I almost offered a late first for him, a 26 late first. And then I thought, let's see if I can get him for a little bit less. I would prefer to that be the backup option. And so that's why I offered that first, and that one was accepted. But if it had gotten to sending a late one, I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's where his price point has been over the last week or two. I don't know where it goes from here, but it feels like if people are selling him, they want to get that late one at least. And then if you're trying to buy him, you're like, all right, can I give you 2 2s and Trey Benson or something? Like, what can I do to not give you my first?
Yeah. And I mean, the 5, he just got drafted at the 508. That's about what a late first is kind of a, the 508 or so. All right. Team 4, Chase Brown or Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Brock Purdy. Is it time for Matt to take his second running back of the entire draft?
This is me.
Oh, this is Brian. Nope, we're not getting a running back from Matt.
Not Matt's time yet. Not drafting a running back here. I mean, I'm taking a calculated risk a little bit because I'm looking at what the draft board holds, and this is the 4th pick. 3 and 2 have 2 quarterbacks each. 1 has 1 quarterback. I don't think there's going to be more than 1 quarterback that goes off the board before my next pick. So I'm going to save for my second quarterback, and I'm going to do what I don't ever do, and I'm not doing this because of it, but I'm going with Kittle here.
I like it.
Oh, Kittle, okay.
So this team is ready to win now.
So to me, a very notable thing about this is that we have seen TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle go before Sam Laporta. That is a rough sophomore year, considering how he was valued before.
Laporta is in the same tier as those guys for me. Laporta, though, I'd be drafting on a team that I'm not specifically ready to go win immediately. Like if it happens, great. If I'm winning good, I'm not saying like a tank team, but like a team that maybe has a young piece, like a team that has the 3 quarterbacks that one of those teams that you have, like where I'm just like, you know what, if Laporta goes for 800 yards and 5 touchdowns next year, I'm fine. Like I don't need like a baller season from him.
Yeah, like if you're competing, you take Laporta here, you might feel more pressure later on to take like an Evan Ingram or something like that.
All right, so team 3, Jefferson, Drake May, Bo Nix, Jonathan Taylor. This is the team that I've got some regrets on. I like the Jefferson. I like the Drake May. I love Bo Nix. But I wish this team had either Ladd, Pickens, or JSN so that in round 4, I could have come back with the quarterback and I could have gotten probably Bo Nix or Purdy. Probably Bo Nix or Purdy at that next spot. But didn't. Took Bo Nix. Took Jonathan Taylor at the 4 spot. So this team now, I think I like this squad, but I think it's time to get another receiver. And this guy's started to ball out a little bit here recently. It's Jalen Waddle time. Waddle is just like a roller coaster, but are we starting to get a little too low on him? It's probably going to be tough to buy because he's had some good games here recently. But in the offseason, I think people are starting to be like just kind of bored of him. And you can probably, some of these guys that went ahead of him. So Flowers, Rome, Addison, maybe in deals in the offseason, you're doing a 2-for-2. You get the better end of that second player if you're pivoting to Waddle. And I still think he's a really good player. I don't really know what's going on this year, but he's been pretty good the last few weeks.
Yeah, this is about the latest I would imagine Jalen Waddle would go in a startup draft. I don't see him falling to the 6th round, even though he was frustrating throughout this year. All right, team 2, I got Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, and Ken Walker as my first 4 picks. And
while you're thinking, I don't mind this team with these two quarterbacks. So you got 2 quarterbacks, you got Ladd, you got Ken Walker. This would be a prime team to me if you turned around after this draft was over and you got into a trade where you sent like 2 firsts for an elite receiver. Like say you were able to do 2 firsts for AJ Brown, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you make AJ Brown your wide receiver 1, and then you are ready to go. Like you've gone into the draft thinking like I plan to sell my firsts.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I don't want to be like sell your first guy where you're like always just like get rid of your first, but this team with Ladd as the wide receiver 1, a little uneasy if you're trying to be high-end competitor. But if you added like an AJ Brown, or maybe you got T Higgins for a lot cheaper. Speaking of T, what a dumpster fire game that was on Monday Night Football for him. But anyways, I'll let you go. But I've dogged the 2 QB build, but Herbert in round 2 after Lamar, I don't mind this team as much as I hate my other team.
Yeah, and there is a few guys I'm kind of going back and forth here on. And I'm going to go ahead and take Laporta here. I just think he's the safest. And I still think his best days are ahead of him. I don't think his rookie season was his best year or anything like that.
Yeah, I think there's better days ahead as well. I bought one this offseason. It was basically the equivalent of Kyler. I think it was Kyler for Dak and Laporta, essentially. And I still feel good about that, even though Laporta continues to be kind of mid.
Yeah, no, I would take the Dak and Laporta side.
I think I had to give something else, but it was like maybe like 2/3 equivalent or something like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brian, the team that took Josh Allen 101, we're at the 5-12.
Yeah, so there's some flexibility in my opinion of where I could go with this. I want to take a quarterback, one of these 2 picks.
You get the double tap here.
I'm between 2 guys. Yep. So it's going to be a quarterback, and then it's going to be either a running back or a receiver. I'm kind of going back and forth. So the quarterback,
best receivers available: Tyreek Hill, Jaden Reed, DJ Moore.
Yeah,
Starting to get a little thin at receiver. McLaurin. We mentioned Judy.
I'm going to take Goff to start.
All right, so now this team has Josh Allen and Goff alongside Marvin Harrison, Pickens, and JSN. Quite the wide receiver trio.
And we're going to get a little bit thicker. I think this team will fill in running backs later. I'm going to have Tyreek as my wide receiver 4 here. That feels pretty good. I don't think he's done yet. He's starting to trend up a little bit. Tua looks pretty good. And whether he's with Tua or not, I think he's explosive enough that for the next couple of years, I think I can get really high-end production from him, especially at that slot. So,
yeah, I think that fits, especially with the Goff pick. You're just getting like good production from 2 spots, filling out the roster, like you said. Hit running back and tight end later.
Is
Makes a
that
lot of
wide
sense.
receiver 26 for Tyreek Hill? Am I seeing that right?
Uh,
I think it's wide receiver 26. And Jaden Reed is still out there, guys. You know what's really interesting? So Jaden Reed was going around the 5th round in startups this offseason. He has exceeded all expectations throughout this year. And here we are. He has lost value to an extreme amount during the and then here goes Matt. He takes Jaden Reed at the 602.
I was like he was going to be upcoming for me. It's not like it was much further, but if I had a different build here, Jaden Reed might be the guy. I just didn't want that the up and down nature that it seems like his career is, or at least is started that way.
yeah, and I think that's what, to Todd's point about not raising his value. It's just frustrating starting him week to week. You don't really know what his usage is going to look like. He doesn't really play in 2 wide receiver sets, even though LaFleur said they're looking at getting him on the field more. Like, gee, thanks, coach. Play our best offensive player more. So I get it. Last round, I was between Laporta and Reed, and Laporta, to me, there was just less desirable tight end. So positional scarcity led me to go Laporta over Reed, but I think they're all kind of in the same tier right now.
Yeah, so that team now has Lamar, Herbert, Ladd, Ken Walker, Laporta, and Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed is going to be a really nice buy in the offseason. And I'm pretty optimistic that the future is bright for him because that's an awesome offense to be in. And they just have a lot of like solid wide receivers that they're trying to get on the field. Eventually they're going to have some bums that are like wide receiver 4 and 5 that you can't justify putting out there. But you can get away with playing Wicks and even like guys like Bo Melton to an extent. Eventually they're going to have some absolute useless players in that wide receiver depth or wide receiver core, and you're not going to be able to justify playing him like 60% of the snaps. So I think that it may be here soon that he becomes a really strong buy because at wide receiver 27, that's a little light.
Yep, agreed.
All right, so team 3. This team: Jefferson, Drake May, Bo Nix, Taylor, Waddle. So this team's ready to compete year one, even with the 2 young quarterbacks, Drake and Nix. So we really, as we've kind of seen with this season as it's unfolded, you've got to have the running backs to be able to compete. Like you just cannot get away with being weak at that position. So I think it's time for James Cook here to be the running back 2 for this team. So Jonathan Taylor and James Cook as a duo. Still leaves this team the opportunity to take maybe an older running back later to fill out the flex, maybe like a Connor. But I kind of like the way this team is unfolding. Tight end might be a struggle, but I like the way this team's unfolding. I think James Cook's a pretty good value in the 6th.
Yeah, Cook was another guy I was kind of looking at with Laporta and Reed, so definitely agree that this is where he belongs.
Team 4, Brian. I like this team with the Brian's got going with the 3 receiver build, Purdy in the 4th. This team's pretty fun.
So I played a little bit of a spoiler, given like my thought process for why and when I took Kittle. I'm going to go quarterback here, and I'm going to lock in Tua and have those 3 receivers, 2 strong quarterbacks, a tight end that I love. I feel pretty good about that. A lot of people are pretty positive about how Tua looks, and I hope that he stops leading with his head everywhere. So we'll see, though.
So Baker's the only like quarterback that we feel is reliable remaining. I think is that a fair way to put it? That we know is going to be the quarterback next year, and maybe you call it the next 2 years. Like I think Juno will be the quarterback for them next year. I don't know about 2 years from now.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
So Brian, Tua over Baker for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see outside of injury why Tua wouldn't also be a starting quarterback in a couple years. So
I agree. I'm just saying over. I think they're in the same tier. I prefer Baker.
Yeah, sure. I think Tua is like, to me, like a little bit bigger of a swing, and I kind of like that idea in this spot with what I got.
I
But
don't have any Tua.
I love Baker.
I don't have any Tua, but do y'all have any concern about Mike McDaniel probably getting fired at some point and Tua not having him? Like, is he benefit? How much do we think he's actually benefiting from Mike McDaniel? Like, maybe he's not. Maybe I don't know.
I think he is, but I don't know how much to divorce that from. I know for a fact he benefited a lot from Mike McDaniel a couple years ago, and maybe it's like he learned what he needed to learn type shit, and now
I
he
like
doesn't
that
need him anymore.
That's a good point.
That's what I'm not sure of.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Maybe the bigger concern is losing Tyreek in a couple of years. Whenever that fall off happens, that's maybe the bigger concern than Mike McDaniel.
Really, my only Tua concern is the concussions. It really is.
That doesn't even concern me. I think I think he'll be. I think he's maybe learning what to do. Like maybe. Hopefully he doesn't get any more. Those don't really concern me as much, and that's why I took Chris Olave in round at the 412.
Yeah, I mean, at some point it's gonna matter. If to me, I thought going into this season we were kind of over it, and then it's like, oh, he still didn't learn his fucking lesson. Maybe a year passes and he does it again because
that's true.
Heat of the moment type shit. He's a football player. He wants to make a football play.
Yeah,
that's the only slight. Other than that, I think he's going to be really good for a long time. To me, we're recording this on December 10th. Last 3 or 4 games are among the best stretch of his career. He's playing great. I think even if they lose Tyreek, that'll continue. So I don't have that much concern about him. It's just, and to your McDaniel point, this could just be me being uninformed. I don't think McDaniel's going to get fired. I think he's going to get a pass for Tua getting hurt for 4 weeks and their season kind of tanking after that. And I do think McDaniel could kind of point the finger right back at the GM and be like, you gave me fucking Skylar Thompson as a backup. Maybe give me a Joe Flacco as a backup and I wouldn't go 0-4 without Tua.
Yeah.
So
I do think that next year is make or break for McDaniel.
Yeah, I agree with that. He
probably has to win a playoff game next year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. What is this? Team 5. This is the Brock Bowers team. So Brock Bowers, Caleb Williams, Rasheed Rice, JJ McCarthy, Chase Brown. Really quick, JJ McCarthy, with the way Sam Darnold has played recently, do we have any reservations about JJ McCarthy getting benched for another year?
I don't right now.
Okay. So as you're drafting this team, you're not sitting here thinking maybe this is a good team to just pair him with Sam Darnold.
No, I kind of trust.
I wouldn't. I'm just asking the question.
I kind of trust the beat reports out of Minnesota that even after his 5 touchdown game this past weekend, they're saying that they're going to stick with McCarthy. And an interesting thing on that note was in the post-game press conference, the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, I can't remember his name, he was talking about Sam Darnold, and he was using language like wherever Darnold is next year, wherever he's going to be. And he said it multiple times where he was kind of giving it away that they're not going to bring him back. I think anything short of a Super Bowl trophy, maybe making the Super Bowl, I don't know about that, but I really think they have to win a Super Bowl with Darnold for them to consider re-signing him. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I'm also the person that was very confident that Trey Lance was going to be the starter with the 49ers. So
yeah, that's true.
They got a little bit of the Band-Aid is.
I would be if they were to get to the Super Bowl and he doesn't throw 4 picks in the Super Bowl, he's their quarterback the next year. Obviously a big if for them to get to that point, but he's been too good for this season for them to, if they were to get that far, they're not going to just ship him.
So I mean, so you're saying they would franchise tag him? They're not giving him like a $200 million.
Right. And I think that makes sense for them to do. Honestly, like they can ease JJ McCarthy back in. He doesn't have to worry about if there's setbacks in his rehab or this, that, or another thing. I don't think that's anything like they want to be competitive. It seems like all the time they're not looking to like take a step back. So to me, like if Darnold gets him to that point, it would be a no-brainer. But it sounds like I'm in the minority there. So
Matt, this team, you've got Bowers, Caleb Williams, Rashee Rice, JJ McCarthy, Chase Brown. Is this team like? Are you kind of already thinking that this is going to be more of a tank build? I mean, you got Rashee Rice, who's probably going to have some sort of suspension. You've got Caleb Williams, who, while I think that this is the right place to draft him in the second round, I'm not expecting like top 8 season from him like he was drafted here. And then JJ McCarthy, which is, I mean, even if he's awesome and he's the starter, or even if he's the starter, you can't really expect him to be like a QB1 year one. So
I mean,
my thought process would be this is like a rebuild, but what's yours?
I wouldn't say that, but the only one I'm going to kind of agree with you on is Rashee Rice. That like I could see him taking like not being really usable until what mid-November, early to mid-November, halfway through the season, maybe a little more. And, you know, you're in round 6 and you don't have any starting receivers for the first 2 months. It's a fair point to kind of ask about the tanking. I don't know here. You bring up a good point, though. I'm going to
Team 9 would be trying to trade up to this spot to take Baker, just so we're all on the same page.
So that's
Team 9 has Nico, Bijan, Brees, DK, and Kyron. And it just saw Tua go, and Baker's basically the best available, only available at quarterback. So yeah, Team 9 would be trying to trade up with Team 5.
Team 7 would be doing that as well, Todd.
Yeah, so we'd be both on the line for you here, Matt.
Yeah, and so that was my dilemma here. It was between Baker, who I do think Baker is the best value on the board.
Yeah, I agree. By probably sizable amount for me.
I do think DJ Moore is a good pick here too. I think this is where he belongs. If I was trying to compete next year, DJ Moore would be my pick. I don't think he should be valued much behind Baker anyway in a vacuum. But yeah, I'm going to end up just going Baker because I do think that's a much safer play and more valuable guy right now. And generally, my startup strategy is usually to just take who I think is more valuable and then figure the rest of the shit out later.
I really like that pick a lot. I think that it's difficult in a startup in round 6 to just like wave the white flag and say, I'm going to just bite the bullet here. And you still have the rest of the offseason for a team like Team 9 to come in and say, hey, I'll just give you my 26 first for Baker and maybe like a little something else or something. So I really like that pick. Maybe you would have traded back if you were actually on the clock in a draft, but I like that pick. If you had not taken Baker, Team 6 would have traded back with Team 7 or 9. So Team 6, I've got Jaden Daniels, Kyler, Drake London, CMC, and Hawkinson. So I don't feel great about London as the only receiver at this point. So it's probably a good idea to grab another one. The issue is that best available is like McLaurin, Judy. And I guess if we were doing this draft, we would be getting some draft picks, some rookie picks coming in. So maybe you can get a rookie wide receiver. The issue is that this rookie class is pretty garbage at wide receiver after Ted McMillan, in my opinion. So I'm kind of out on Ayuk at this point. Debo is just a dumpster fire. DJ Moore, I guess I'm probably not as high on him as Matt is. So this is like a flexion point in the draft. It seems like where it's just kind of like yuck. So maybe you just run it back with another running back, and that's probably what we'll do here. So best available running backs for me is Tracy right now.
Okay.
So probably leaning Tracy.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, we'll go Tracy.
All right, I like that.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, one thing I like about Tracy is that the Giants have kind of made it clear that they don't want to invest at running back. So that makes me feel good. I like that they're kind of saying like, no, we're not going to invest anything. Maybe they do draft they'll probably draft like a 4th or 5th rounder. But I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I'm just now remembering it. I think Devin Singletary is pretty much guaranteed to be under contract for another year. If they cut him, I want to say it's like a $5 or $6 million dead cap hit. So he's probably around for another year. So I'm guessing Tracy has the job next year. So I would probably liken him a little bit to a Rachaad White, but I think he's a lot more talented than Rachaad White.
Yeah, definitely more explosive, for sure. So, and I think he kind of pairs nicely with CMC in terms of volatility. Like, all right, let's say they draft Genty or another running back really high for some dumb reason. CMC gets hurt. Okay, I don't have any running backs. I'll quickly pivot, or something like that. Or CMC and Tracy are both really good.
Yeah.
All right, now this team I didn't really like all that much. Now I like it a lot, kind of.
Yeah,
so.
and you made me think of another aspect of this. So the Giants, their first pick is going to be top 3 or 4, and they're
so it's probably not Genty.
Almost for sure taking a quarterback. I think 100% taking a quarterback. So you don't have that like round 1 concern that they do something crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
And are you taking a running back at the top of round 2 after you just got Tracy? Probably not. So that makes me feel a little better about Tracy. I need to double check the Devin Singletary contract. If that's the case, I actually like Tracy even more than I maybe thought before we started this exercise.
All right, Brian.
Okay. So I'm up. I'm going to take DJ Moore.
Yeah, I think
Not
that's
really a huge decision. I guess the other person I would have considered is Terry McLaurin, but I'm going to go with DJ Moore.
So that's
funny how DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin have been like kind of tied together since they came into the league, and here we are. What is this, like year 6 for them, and they're still tied together?
Yeah, I mean, DJ came in younger, so that's the only difference, really. But they both had their ups and downs. To me, I think I believe in Caleb. I agree with what I think Matt said earlier, that Keenan Allen's probably out after this year. I think him and Odunze could be a nice complement to each other. So yeah, I'm on.
Yeah, I think Keaton's gone as well. All right, team 8.
Yep, the team has Neighbors, Mahomes, Stroud, Trevor, and Odunze so far. And
while you're thinking of who you're taking, I think that this is what I'm learning about round 6 is that I would like to try to figure out a way to move my round 7 and round 6 picks into the 5th round, because this round makes me feel very uncomfortable. So like in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, maybe I'm moving back like half a round in the 2nd and moving up a full round from like the 6th into the 5th. Maybe I'm doing that again in the 3rd and moving from the 7th into the early 6th or something like that. Because I like those first few picks in the 6th, I guess. So like the first 5 or 6. But at this point now with Tracy, DJ Moore, Jacobs, I'm not feeling as excited as I am about like Tyreek and James Cook.
So I think we might be good. We might be good trade partners down the road if we do a startup together, because I like the situation that if you have built out planning for what's round 6 offers, and it looks like maybe like 6, 7 turn type stuff. I like the guys that are going to go, I assume, here for win now teams for sure, if you can fill in those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I like them for win now. I just think it's a major value gap between like Rome Odunze, Jalen Waddle, like Laporta. Like some of these guys could be like 4th, 5th rounders pretty quickly, just like by the end of this season even. I mean, like Roma Dunze could be in the 3rd round in 2 weeks. Like he just could. I mean, he just had a 2-touchdown game, and that's just how quickly the value shifts for young guys like that. I think we're starting to get to a point where that's not really possible for some of these guys in like the 6th, 7th, and that'd be my only. So I'm not saying I don't like the players, like the value.
Yeah.
I think we just hit like a value cliff a little bit. Is
Yeah,
kind of what I'm
it's
thinking.
fair.
Yeah, and so I just took Josh Jacobs there at 6'8". I think he's a tremendous value here. Little surprised he even lasted this long, even though we don't really we tend to wait on running backs, all three of us. But Todd, I think that's the best point that you made. Is I kind of agree with Brian where I do like a lot of these guys in round 6, but most of them are win now pieces. They're probably not going to gain a whole lot of value. And to that point, if Jacobs was going to gain a lot of value at this age, he would have done it right now because he's having an awesome year.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain Green Bay is going to bring him back. They love him. And so
what I'm also learning with this is that after you get past Bijan, Gibbs, Achane, and Barkley, I mean, I'm not even going to include Brees in this. Once you get past those 4, I don't really want to get into running back again until you get into this like maybe Kyron, Chase Brown, James Cook, Josh Jacobs type round range. Like in that 4th round, Matt, where we took Ken Walker, Jonathan Taylor, CMC, I think I would have preferred maybe the quarterbacks in that round on a couple of those teams, or maybe DK. So I like Ken Walker, Jonathan Taylor, taking them 2.5 rounds above Josh Jacobs. Don't know if I love that in hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. Because like I'm looking at round 4 and like, yeah, like you said, the quarterbacks. I do like Purdy, McCarthy, Trevor, Dak, Richardson.
But the issue is that we both, with teams 2 and 3, you took Lamar and Herbert in the 1st and 2nd.
Right. Yeah.
I took Drake May and Nix in the 2nd and 3rd. And it kind of goes back to the point of when you fill up those quarterbacks early, you get kind of pinned. And we weren't able to dip into Purdy, McCarthy, Anthony Richardson, Trevor Lawrence, Dak, because we already had those 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Because like, you know, like you were mentioning DK, like I don't love taking DK or Devontae Smith in the early.
Yeah. So like in hindsight, maybe with that late second round pick, instead of taking Drake May, maybe I take Achane there.
Yeah, or Marvin Harrison if you prefer him.
Yeah, or Marvin Harrison, something like that. Brian Thomas Jr., McBride even. Maybe I don't really like even the 2nd round quarterback. Yeah,
no, I think it's a fair point.
All right, what is this? Team 9. This is the fade quarterback team, and with Baker gone, we're just going to have to continue that. So Nico, Bijan, Brees, DK, Kyron. There's really no quarterback that I even deem worthy of like the next maybe round or 2. So I think Darnold and Penix are the 2 highest on my board. So probably another running back here. Let's go. We're going to go Terry McLaurin. We need to get that 3rd receiver. There's going to be plenty of running backs later. It's time for Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him.
I would have loved for him to slip to me. But this is Burrow, Wilson, Brian Thomas Jr., Dak, Zay Flowers. I'm going to put stock in Derrick Henry not dropping off ever. So King Henry, long live.
Yeah, I like that. Don't be afraid of the age or the production.
The Mufasa movie comes out soon. So you said long live. I was thinking long live the king. Mufasa comes out around Christmas. So definitely going to see that.
Shout out Timon and Pumbaa.
Matt, while you're thinking about who you're going to pick, I'm going to ask a question
about Lion King.
While this guy is still not been taken yet. Jerry Jeudy. Let me ask y'all a question. If you were guaranteed that Jameis Winston was the quarterback week 1 next year, Where are you taking Jerry Jeudy on this board? Are you taking him above any receivers that have gone yet? And if so, which one? Where's he
No,
going?
I'm not.
Brian?
He's soon. I don't care if Jameis is his quarterback or not. I think
I know, but if let's say he is, forget about
he's in the like DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, so for me, he's right
range.
after. He's between Jaden Reed and DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping somebody would have like a hot take of like around DK or something.
I mean, he has that potential to do that. He was beloved at one point. I think a lot of people obviously turned their backs on him, but I feel like if he continues this maybe for the rest of the season, he's going to be a hot name that will definitely go in some of your drafts higher than what we project. That's for sure.
So Matt just took JMO.
Yeah, I took JMO. I would take JMO over Jeudy. I just trust him more. And with the Jeudy thing, my only take really is like I don't trust any of this shit. Tillman is dominating whenever he plays. Elijah Moore looks better than he has since his rookie year. Njoku looks like a top 3 tight end. I don't trust any of it. So if you tell me Jameis is going to be their starting quarterback next year, I'm still not taking Jeudy because I'll just take Tillman and Elijah Moore or whoever the fuck next round. And I really think that I'm not going to be that much worse off for it. I've never been a Jeudy guy though, so I'm bringing my own bias into it. But I just don't trust the Jameis scam to last for any sustainable period of time. And I'm fine missing out on that month of production or a couple months. And if this really is a turning point for Judy's career and he's just really good from now on, like good for him. He certainly has the draft pedigree and the talent for it. I just don't trust that it's sustainable. And JMO is a guy that, I didn't like before this year. And I've really come around on him all the way. I think he's really good. I think he's like almost has like the same amount of receiving yards as Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, or something similar to that. He's been really productive on limited touches with them. Looks good. So I think he's a guy that could end up out of this round 6 being one that maybe he finishes the year really strong and we're looking at him in like the early to mid 5th going into this offseason up there with like Flowers and Downs and Olave and Devontae. Maybe Olave and Devontae may be a little too high, but like I could see him next to Flowers, Downs, Odunze. If he finishes really strong, has a good playoffs, all that. So yeah, I'll take JMO to pair with this team 11, and then it's on you, Todd, with team 12 here, the 0 QB team.
Yeah, this team 0 QB. It's in an arms race with team 9 0 QB. And I would love to take a tight end here, but I just don't feel very comfortable with any of them. Maybe Mark Ingram. Maybe I was looking at Evan Ingram. Maybe Mark Andrews. I do know that this team is going to take Pacheco. So let's go ahead and do that. I really like that role with that offense. I think he's got it kind of locked in for another at least year or so. So this team now has 3 running backs with Achane, Irving, or Bucky Irving, and Pacheco. So now it comes down to tight end. Do we take like Mark Andrews and Njoku? Like I don't love either of those at this point. So I think the fall has been too long. We're all scared of the torn ACL, maybe a little bit too much at this point. And I think that what will end up inevitably happening is we look back and we say, Debo got cut or traded, and we say, why did we let Ayuk fall that far? And so Ayuk 701.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm worried about it.
I am too. I definitely am.
But that's why he's fallen as far as he has, and he shouldn't fall much further than this.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the year, he was like wide receiver 13 or 14. He was what I was kind of coining superseding the glob. After like 2 bad games, he got into the glob, and now he's like almost outside of the glob.
Yeah. I think you make a good point. He might be falling a little too far. And then team 11 here, I'm just going to pair Joe Mixon with this team because I think it's going to compete next year. depending on what Downs and JMO do. If they have down years, then maybe it's going to struggle a little bit. But I think it was ready to kind of put a cornerstone running back with this team.
Yeah, and this team has Trey McBride alongside the 2 quarterbacks, so I really like how that team is. I mean, it's going to dominate. It's going to be probably the best team at quarterback. Probably going to score the most points per game each week at quarterback, and it's probably going to be a top 2-3 team at tight end. If Trey McBride ever scores touchdowns, it might be tight end 1.
Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe that'll be what gets him into the Bowers tier once he starts scoring touchdowns,
or just a touchdown would be.
Yeah.
With this pick, I was hoping to get Mixon, but that's fine. I have 2 other people. I'm deciding between a running back and a receiver. They're both on the older side. But I think they fit with the way this team has a young core, but also wants to obviously win games. If you have Derrick Henry, you're trying to win. I'm gonna go with Cooper Kupp here, and I think he's
thought
got
about
plenty
Kupp at 701 with IU.
Plenty of production left. He looks good.
Yeah.
So I guess we could wait. I was going to say, was the running back you were considering Alvin Kamara?
No.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Oh,
okay.
I mean, he's close, but there's another guy that I was gonna take instead.
Yeah, I think I know who it was. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay. So David Montgomery.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, I mean, we're a podcast here, so let's be open about who. I mean, I'm not going to snipe you here with David Montgomery.
No. I was just having the drama build for the next time I pick, but it's gone. It's gone now. If David Montgomery's there, no.
So this team 9 has 3 receivers: Nico, DK, and McLaurin. It's got 3 running backs: Bijan, Brees, and Kyron. Like, this team is ready to win if it can figure out what to do at quarterback, and I guess it's got to figure out what to do at tight end. And I'm thinking that I'm thinking Mark Andrews is going to kind of get back to what he once was. Like, this is now a round and a half after the Hawk, Kittle, Laporta group. Andrews feels like he's ancient, but he's really not that old. What is he, 29 or so? Like,
I think 29.
Yeah, he's a very fair age for the tight end position. He's been a lot better these last handful of weeks. He's not what he once was, but I mean, I think he's still solid.
So Todd, you're not taking a quarterback here. You talked about why. I think it's interesting, and maybe speak a little bit to, like, what is we're not going to get to it obviously because there's only going to be 8 rounds. Like, what would your plan be in a startup where you're in this situation? Is it totally punt? Are you going to try and scrap a couple backups that have upside? Like, what is the goal? Trade as soon as you get out of startup? What is your
teams 12 and team 12 and 9? Neither have a quarterback. They're going to both. First off, we have the 20. They're all going to have 25 rookie picks. Let's just assume that they're not in the range to take Shadur or Cam Ward. And honestly, these teams are win now. They don't really want those guys anyways. So maybe you dangle your 25 first. Let's say they've got like the 109. Maybe you dangle your 25 first to the team that has 3 quarterbacks with Baker. There's the team that has 3 quarterbacks with T-Law as their third. I think you go to those at some point and see what kind of deal you can make using your future first, because these teams are totally win now. Like, you're stacked at receiver and running back and flex. So you're like ready to go. So I'm probably dangling my future first. I don't want to get like too nitty gritty into like a league specific, but I think there's a league that you're in, Brian, maybe Matt too, League of Destiny or something like that. And I've got a friend that's in that league, K-Dub. And so he did like this exact build. And then he traded his 20. This is this past off season. He traded his 25 first for Bo Nix. Now he got lucky with like guys like Baker, also that he drafted way later. So like you can't expect for that to happen. But I think going in with this build and the intent to trade your future first to a team that has 3 quarterbacks, they're kind of happy to get rid of that third quarterback. I know that I've got some teams where like I've got multiple and I would probably sell like just a hair below market value just to get that third quarterback off my team and get something for them. So I think that's probably what I'm thinking. I know I've been the team that has had 3 or 4 quarterbacks and I always have a hard time getting rid of them.
Yeah. So my follow-up question in this scenario, let's remove what we have in the draft board. You just have a team with no quarterback. What is the lowest ranking quarterback that you would pay your 25-1 for?
Baker.
Baker. Okay.
Yeah.
So Baker would Tua also be in that range?
Yeah, I would do it for Tua as well. I like Baker a good bit. I'd probably group Baker closer with Goff, and then like a little bit later, I'm okay with Tua. But yeah, if I'm tiering them and I try to have like wider tiers, they would all be 3-tiered together. But then you also alluded to what else would I do in this draft? I'm making sure that I'm getting several backups to go alongside. So like I'm getting the later in the draft, I'm trying to get like a Justin Fields for one on the higher end, but then I'm trying to get like a Sam Howell, which sounds gross, but like that's probably what people said about Jameis Winston 4 months ago. I'm trying to get like Gardner Minshew, Drew Locks, those types that just like, oh, one guy that I just realized that hasn't gone, and he's actually, I'm drafting off of my own rankings, and it's Bryce Young. So Bryce Young, it's probably getting close to time for Bryce Young to go at some point. So I just I scrolled down the QB list, and I have my auction values here, and I stumbled into Bryce Young at $1. And so I need to edit that he's no longer worth $1.
Keep spoiling my picks, man.
I was going to say
I probably would have taken Bryce Young with that last pick.
I was going to say we kind of covered that most of my teams already have quarterbacks. I would have taken Bryce Young in the last 10 picks if I was not drafting.
I did not realize that I hadn't edited this in a few days, and Bryce Young, if I had realized that, I probably would have taken him with that last one.
He would have looked good with that last team, but now you're going to end up giving him to Brian potentially. I'm not going to take him here.
Okay. I think that next team would do well with the Anthony Richardson team 7 with Bryce. Young.
So team 8's got the 3 quarterbacks, Neighbors, Odunze, and Jacobs, and I think this is like the last young wide receiver that I like that's left. And I think you guys disagree, but I'm going to go ahead and take Tank Dell here, pair him with Stroud. And I'm not that worried at all, really, about his sophomore season. I think it's pretty explainable why he has a dip in production from his rookie year.
Explain it.
Coming back from injury, Houston's offense as a whole has taken a big step back. Their offensive line is like bottom 5 in the league. CJ Stroud's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the league. I think a lot has been made about their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, struggling a lot. He was considered kind of a hot coaching candidate a year ago, and I think that's cooled off quite a bit to the point where now the speculation is he even going to keep this job this offseason. So I just think Dell is really good at separating. Stroud loves him. I think he's explosive. Not that worried about his size. I think he's a good route runner. So I think there's a very good chance he bounces back and has a pretty productive year next year.
We'll see. You will see.
So Matt's right. I'm pretty out on Tank Dell. When Nico's been out, he basically did nothing. He had maybe like one good game. I will say that Stroud
not his rookie year though.
Not his rookie year. Productive You're right. Not his rookie year. Stroud did miss him several times on like plays where they were like wide open, where maybe he makes that throw previous year. I know there was another play at one point this year where like Tank Dell had a breakaway touchdown that he just outright dropped. I think it seemed like maybe he caught the ball in the lights, or the ball was in the lights or something. I don't know. It's been a weird year for him. If I can get him later in the offseason for like a couple twos or something, or maybe I've got like a 204 and somebody's just like dying for a pick, which that happens as we get into draft season. And somebody's like, I got Tank Dell, I'll give you Tank Dell for that 204. I'm like, okay. Then that's when I'm going to be probably like buying back in to have a couple shares. But there's still a couple guys here at wide receiver that I probably prefer.
Yeah, I'll say out of everyone, us three don't really disagree a lot. Maybe here and there we do. Generally, I think we have similar thoughts on a lot of players. Dell is one player I think right now that we disagree on probably more than maybe any other player in fantasy, or he's at near the top of the list, I would say. Like I'm very confident that he's going to bounce back and regain value from here. I would be very surprised if he lost value from where he's at right now. So we'll see. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out. Maybe it takes till next year, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. All right, Brian, Team 7 here.
Bryce Young.
Yep, talked
obviously,
about that.
Yeah, him and Anthony Richardson paired together at quarterback. I'd have Gibbs and Barkley, and then Lamb, Addison, DJ Moore. I like how that looks. I think there's youth, there's upside, there's win now production. I like that a lot.
Draft capital, what are you paying in terms the actual pick that you would pay for Bryce Young?
I wouldn't pay a 1. I wouldn't pay a 1. So I think it's probably 2 2s here. I think, but it's trending in the right direction for Bryce's sake. I think.
You said 2 2s.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it would take to buy him. In most situations, you might find a person that's like totally stuck on priors or doesn't like Carolina's weapons or whatever. This
or they held him this long. Like now I'm starting to see something. I'll wait for him to be worth a first or something like that.
Yeah, and if someone's asking for first, I wouldn't pay that right now. But I also think that he certainly has that within his range of outcomes by the end of season, even being worth that. So like this offseason, he could be worth a first.
I saw this trade go down probably 2 or 3 weeks ago before Bryce Young really started rolling. And I mean, rolling is a loose term for Bryce Young. Since he started rebuilding a little bit of value, let's say, I saw Bryce Young and a 27 first. And I don't want to predict where picks are going to be going in the 2027 draft class, but this team, from a team value perspective, has the most value in the league. So that you can take that for what it's worth. 27 first and Bryce Young for Brock Purdy.
Interesting.
I think that's a fair trade.
Yeah, at this point, I think it's probably getting close to fair. Yeah,
it's kind of a fool's errand to like project draft picks too.
I'm not saying to do that.
Yeah,
I just want to give you a perspective. This isn't like some shithead team.
It's
like this. If you're looking at just straight up team value, let's forget about like talent. Team value. Team has by far the most team value. And then you can decide from there how you want to value that 27 first.
Yeah,
27 first and Bryce Young for.
And just for like context, and I think a lot of people that follow college football, there's some absolutely stud elite 2027, current college freshmen. There's like 3 elite prospect wide receivers.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, probably going to be the headliners there.
Yeah, the headliners. Then you got to imagine quarterbacks emerge. But again, the projection, I don't hate the deal because of what I was saying about Bryce Young. He obviously didn't know that then, but like a first is within range of outcomes. If I'm getting 2 firsts with one being who knows what happens in 2 years to any team first. And I think that's an interesting swing for sure. But I don't blame the other side doing that either, I guess. But
yeah, at this point, I think it's getting close to pretty fair. All right.
Yep. All right.
Team 6.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, London, CMC, Hawkinson, Tracy. This team is desperate for a wide receiver. And the wide receiver board is getting bleak. I'm not taking this guy here I hate to just like foreshadow players, but he just showed up on my board. Juwan Jennings has been really good, and he is like the fact that we might get to a point where we're drafting him here tonight is insane. But I'm not drafting him. I'm taking Jerry Jeudy, who we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was going to be.
I was down to 2 players pretty much that I would hope to get next. So we'll see if I get the other one.
This team is also desperate for a wide receiver. Team 5 has Bowers, Caleb, Rice, J.J. McCarthy, Chase Brown, and took Baker Mayfield in round 6.
So arguably this team is, we've talked about as maybe like looking at being a tanker unless they can trade one of those quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There is a young player on the horizon for this team.
There is, but it's not going to, it's a young player, but it's not going to be really a tank build pick. And maybe it's a surprise because we haven't mentioned this guy's name yet at all. It's unfortunate what happened to Jonathan Brooks, second ACL tear, terrible.
Chuba.
I'm going to take Chuba Hubbard here.
Chuba.
Hubbard got new paper with Carolina before the Brooks injury. Brooks tore his ACL again. He's going to be out, I would assume, all of next year, given the point that it happened. Chuba was crushing it all year. Terrible offense with either quarterback. Maybe they're figuring some things out with Bryce Young. The one good thing that Carolina has on their entire team is an offensive line. They spent about $200 million on it this past offseason. And yeah, I just think Chuba's a really good value pick right here. I think he's leaves open the door to still compete next year if I can figure out how to get some goddamn receivers on this team. But Chase Brown and Chuba could be a nice little running back combo.
One thing I love about that pick is that that's an awesome trade chip.
Yeah.
As you get into like week 5, when bye weeks start coming around next year, you're sitting there with Chuba, and maybe next year's, Chris Olave, like this year, goes down, and you're trading Chuba for a round 4 type wide receiver, and it's helping your tank. I think that's very plausible. Another thing with Chuba that I like a lot is that they just drafted Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd. I don't think they're going to turn around and draft another day 2 running back. So maybe they sign someone like like the Giants did with Devin Singletary. But I think you're going into next year with a workhorse role for Chuba Hubbard.
So I wanted to save until I was hoping Chuba would get picked. First of all, tonight, I was ready to do it if I needed to. It wasn't my pick here, but I've been thinking about this the last couple of weeks. His profile, in the sense that not necessarily like metric stuff, but his production in college and hype is eerily similar to Kyren Williams. Early production in college, super excited in terms of like Dynasty people were super excited. Like, this is the guy, this is the savior type of, like, Chuba was that for a couple of years. Kyren was for a couple of years. Then they had a disappointing final year before they went pro. And it obviously impacted their draft stock. And it's almost like there's like this post hype. I could see Chuba a year from now, things go, according to plan, and what you're talking about being in where Kyren is, like the 5th round. So to me, like, that is an awesome value. I think Chuba is really good. I think something must have been going on that year in college, similar to Kyren, or they got a chip back on their shoulder. But I love the upside here for sure. And he was basically free last year. So
yeah, I think that's a good comp for sure.
Okay, so this team, sorry, that was my long-winded. I just had to get that out there. I've been thinking about it for too long.
You're good.
I got Chase, I got Brown, I got Higgins, Purdy, Kittle, Tua. I think it's time for that running back that I was thinking about taking. Give me Monty. I was against him for seemingly years, and I'm a firm believer in his usage, and he's a good player. He's not Gibbs level, but I'm all wheels up with this offense. So I think this is a nice value for this team.
Yeah, if you're going to wait on running back till like the late round 7, Monty's definitely as good as you're really hoping for. Basically, you knocked out your receivers, your tight end, your quarterback. So I think it fits perfectly with this team.
All right, team 3 with Jefferson, the 2 rookie quarterbacks, May Nix, Jonathan Taylor, Waddle, James Cook. This team's going to run back another running back, and it's kind of in that David Montgomery mold. It's Brian Robinson here. I think with Eckler under contract, probably again for next year, I think he probably is on this roster. I don't really see them being a team that drafts a 2nd or 3rd round running back. And I think we see Brian Robinson with a similar type of workhorse role. He's not a stud by any means. I think that Montgomery is clearly ahead of him. I prefer Hubbard, but so I don't love the value seeing those 2 guys go right ahead of him, but I like him in this range.
Yeah, I
Matt,
agree with you. I think,
before you make your next pick, we were talking a lot about running backs, and we've talked quite a bit about, Kenneth Walker, and obviously since we drafted, he is also, vaguely hurt, and he's had an injury past. And his backup, Zach Charbonnet, he looked pretty dynamite this past week. Is that someone you're not taking him here necessarily, but is it someone that you're definitely making a point of drafting with team 2 or really going after it if you have Kenneth Walker? A high upside.
I don't really ever do that where like in a dynasty draft where I'll try and handcuff a guy. I do think if you're going to do that, Seattle makes more sense than most teams, given that when Walker misses time, we see Sharp get like the workhorse role and be very productive, arguably more productive than Walker with that role. I don't really know how to value Zach Charbonnet. I don't know where he would go in a startup draft. I would guess like a round or 2 from now, maybe like late round 8, round 9. So to answer your question, no, I wouldn't particularly look for him on this team. But I think he's arguably the most valuable handcuff in fantasy. So it's a good question, I think.
How about you, Todd? If you're sitting with Kenneth Walker, is Charbonnet someone that you're putting at least a slight more emphasis on? Again, not any handcuff, a high upside handcuff that has standalone value in theory, not just a 1 week, plotter type like a Gus Edwards or something like that.
Yeah, at complete market value, I would prefer him to whoever is his side by side. So like if we're looking at ADP, whoever Charbo is right next to, yes, give me him with the Ken Walker team. But I'm not like going around ahead to make that happen. I would just be okay with it happening naturally. Because one thing that's nice about that is it may allow you to be a little bit thinner of a roster. If maybe you've got just like 2 good running backs, but you've got Charbonnet backing up Ken Walker, you feel a little bit more comfortable with maybe just 2 guys.
Right.
This pick is tough. So I'm up here with team 2. I'm got Lamar and Herbert. I got McConkey and Jaden Reed. I got Ken Walker, like we said, Sam Laporta. And this might be a little bit of a reach. I guess not a reach. I don't know. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy here.
I thought that with your last pick, you were going to take Xavier Worthy. What was that? Team 5.
Oh, yeah. He would have fit.
I asked you if you were going to take a young guy, and you said, yeah, young-ish, I think you said. And yeah, I thought you were going to go Worthy with that pick.
I think Worthy's done enough to kind of avoid that face planner thing, or you can call it whatever you want, where it's like, oh, we see you suck as a rookie, we're no longer interested. I don't think he's been that bad. I do think that people that think he sucks really are not they're either dismissing or they don't know about the context of Patrick Mahomes just fucking missing this guy constantly when he's wide open deep down the field. And I do think it's a little bit flukish. Obviously, Mahomes is an awesome quarterback. I expect their chemistry to grow a little bit. Maybe it actually helps Worthy when Rice is back. Takes a little bit off his plate, lets him work downfield. Maybe they don't ask as much. I don't know what it is, but I do think Xavier Worthy is still a good player. I would compare him a little bit to Jameson Williams. Yeah. Maybe a little less dynamic with the ball in his hands, but not much. So I think he's going to be a useful fantasy player or a useful NFL player. Probably never going to give you like top 12 value or production. But I think he's a safer pick here than some people would think he is. I guess I would phrase it that way.
I think coming JMO is like spot on. JMO, Christian Watson, like any given week at maybe it hasn't really happened this year for him, but any given week he could give you 20. There's gonna be a lot of weeks though where he gives you like 6 and you're like, shit, why did I play him over a guy like, like Romeo Dobbs who consistently gives you 10. But I think the JMO comp is pretty spot on. And like you said, there could have been 3 or 4 of those completions that way downfield between him and Mahomes. If those get hit, Worthy's value may be up in like that 5th round, like alongside like Waddle and Addison, just by a few more of those deep balls coming to fruition. I mean, like after week 1, when he scored 2 touchdowns and like 3 touches,
yeah,
people were like saying he's untouchable. So it could turn quick for him being attached to Mahomes. So Brian, team 1, the Josh Allen squad.
Yeah, I have some flexibility here. The first person I'm going to take is Alvin Kamara.
This team didn't have a running back. It's got Allen, Marvin Harrison Jr., George Pickens, JSN, Goff, and Tyreek. So 2 quarterbacks, 4 receivers, and now Alvin Kamara.
I feel really good about that one. And now I'm kind of going back and forth with a couple players. I'm going back. Do I want to take a swing at running back that maybe Travis Etienne is just like playing injured this year? Do I want to go old producer Aaron Jones? I got Tony Pollard, and then receiver. Cortland Sutton's been a monster. If we're believing in Bo Nix. So I've been flip-flopping all over the place with this. I think I'm going to take a swing and go with ETN here. I think this is a relatively safe team. I think if I hit on that, it's massive upside. And if I miss, there's not a huge penalty here, hopefully. So
Sutton was the guy I was looking at with that Xavier Worthy pick. It's taken a while this year for, I think, him to slowly build up some value back after him just being like a gross, dusty vet that nobody has wanted the last couple of years. And now, like, the last week or two, we're getting ready for the fantasy playoffs. He's been a guy I've been targeting. I'm like, oh, I can get Sutton for cheap. No, I can't. People do not want to trade that guy unless they're on a tanker. And usually, from what I've noticed, he's not on any tankers. People that are competing either traded for him.
He's found money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was a huge Courtland Sutton fan, and then he just kept getting hurt all the time. Like, to me, it wasn't dustiness. It was like just never staying on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's obviously staying on the field, but my concern is still there that like at any moment that could, change again. That was my fear. And that's where I'm taking a somewhat injury prone running back, but whatever.
Yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and take him on this team because I think this is where he belongs, and I think he fits with the rest of this team too, where I just took Xavier Worthy on. All right, so Todd, back to you with team 3 here.
Team 3. So this team's got 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, the rookies, then Jefferson and Waddle, and it's time to get this team a tight end. So we're going Njoku. And I think I may have considered taking Njoku with the last pick when I went Brian Robinson and just kind of wait for either Kamara, B-Rob, whoever it is that shows up in the next pick. But I like Njoku a lot here in the 8th round. I think he remains pretty undervalued.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. He's been on my radar the last 8 or 9 picks, I would say, and I just wasn't really quite sure where to take him. All right, team 4 here, Brian, you're up.
Same deal. So Tony Pollard or Aaron Jones, that's where I'm looking at. I'm gonna go with my gut here. I'm gonna go Tony Pollard.
Yeah, like he's definitely obviously a few years younger than Aaron Jones. Pollard has looked really good this year, so I
Showed
think
some juice again. Yeah.
Yeah, he has. Aaron Jones, to me, like, I'm really beginning to be a bit concerned about him. The Vikings seem like they've lost a little bit of faith in him, and I think he's kind of losing the goal line work. He's not catching a bunch of balls out of the backfield. I think he's still a really good like a runner, but I don't know, like a between the 20s. I'm not sure that it's really going to be. I don't know that we should be drafting him really in this range personally. I do like Pollard, though.
I mean, I hear you. He's not good. He's not as good or productive as like a Mixon or Henry while being their same age and less durable. So it is kind of a tough call.
I want to go back to Njoku really quick.
Yeah.
And he's not that old. He is tight end 5 on the season.
Mm-hmm.
And that counts Taysom Hill as tight end 4. Are we too low on David Njoku?
Kind of like we mentioned with Judy, and I think Njoku is showing a little more production outside of Jameis than Judy has, but I really just don't.
His best production with Flacco.
I just don't know how to value these guys because, like Jameis, like I think Elijah Moore sucks, and Elijah Moore is like a top 20 wide receiver with Jameis. So, like, I don't know, man. That's just my answer. I just shrug my shoulders. I don't know.
My answer with Njoku is
here
always
Njoku really quickly here, and then Brian, you go. Here Njoku's targets since week 6, and I don't know when Watson went out, but since week 6, targets 7, 14, 7, 7, 9, 5, 17, and 13.
Yeah. 30 targets the last 2 games.
I think we're too low on Njoku, boys. And they're not really the yards aren't really coming to fruition on those targets, but yeah, I think we're too low on Njoku.
I would be comfortable anytime after Kittle, I think makes sense.
In hindsight, if I was thinking better, I'd probably take Njoku where I took Andrews, and then this team 11 or team 3 that just took Njoku probably ends up taking Andrews. So I think that's probably the Njoku range is like somewhere after Baker. So in that mid 6th? The mid 6th on, I think, is a fair place for Njoku. Now, obviously, it kind of comes down to, like, do you want to take a tight end? Maybe you just want to settle for, like, an Ingram or a Goddard or, Kate Otten, or maybe that's, like, the style that you prefer. So I get that if that's not you specifically, but, like, if you're a drafter and that's what you prefer doing.
It feels a lot like the quarterback, like the double tap quarterback strategy. It was similar that it was like, get that elite tight end or don't draft one at all kind of thing. I think we're kind of trending more we're regressing back to the mean a little bit in the sense of like there are a good amount of good tight ends. And we don't know if outside of those couple two really from what we based on our draft, is it worth not taking with that receiver running back when I can get Njoku, like you're saying, undervalued, but let's say 6 to 8 in the 6th round, 6 to 8 range. Like I'd rather have him there than spending a 3rd round pick on Trey McBride personally. But I get the other side of it too. Again,
Yeah,
that's just
I
similar
think
to the double tap
you know, I mean,
quarterback.
I've been highest on Hawkinson. I mean, he's like one of my most owned players. And like, I'd rather have Njoku round 7, like he just went 803 here, but let's call it Njoku round 7 than Hawk round 6 or round 5 every day of the week.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Team 5 here, Brock Bowers, the 3 quarterbacks, will he, won't he tank team. They have Rashee Rice, no other receivers. I was kind of considering Jennings here, but I think that would be kind of like, I don't know how to phrase this, but it would almost be like forcing a I'm going to try and compete next year pick. And I'm going to take someone I like just a little bit more than Jennings, keep some flexibility open. And the guy I think is the best player on the board right now, and it's a tight end we have not mentioned yet. I'm going to go ahead and take Tucker
Luke
Kraft.
Schoonmaker?
I'm going to go ahead and take Tucker Kraft here, tight end for the Packers. I think he's a really good young tight end.
Yeah. Sure.
Volume concerns are going to be there.
Agreeing with him because he's a Packer, and I'm trying to garner good faith with you. I do think he's solid. I thought you might be going Jake Ferguson there, and I'm really concerned about the fact that Luke Schoonmaker looks so good in those couple games when Ferguson was out. And do they think like, wait, is Ferguson good, or is it just like our offense decent? Like Schoonmaker, let's not forget, he went in round 2, I think, of the NFL draft a couple years ago.
That was what was funny. Like as you were saying that, I was like, I remember everyone was like Schoonmaker, and then Ferguson was the guy that emerged, and they like their roles totally reversed in fantasy. And it would be interesting if they reversed again.
Yeah.
Well, and people remember Dalton Schultz went from Dallas to Houston and just fell off the map. He sucks now. I mean, he doesn't suck. He does suck actually. He just that's my dog.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Matt's dog thinks Dalton Schultz sucks too. So next team, this team has a tight end, so this team won't be taking one, I don't think, here. So Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray. The 2 receivers are London and Judy. So that's a rough go at receiver. I don't love London as the wide receiver 1, and I don't love Judy as the wide receiver 2. So this team needs a wide receiver 1, and we're not getting one in round 8. Also has CMC and Tracy with Hawkinson. So what are we doing here? So probably go back to the receiver well. As we get into round 8, I'd like to take someone that I think might be able to accrue value. I don't know that this team really has a chance to compete this upcoming year. I think this is maybe a decent team where you just trade CMC early in the year. You kind of see what you got with Tracy. You see if Judy can run it back. So I'm actually kind of considering Michael Penix here.
Yeah.
But I'm going to not do that. Just wanted to kind of throw his name out there. But he is on the radar at this point for me, and I'll at each pick.
Yep.
I think this guy, Michael Pittman, gets a little bit too much flack, and he's been hurt this year. He was pretty good last year. I think he's been better the last few weeks. I think they were on bye this past week, but he's been better later in the year. So Michael Pittman, it may have helped that Josh Downs was out, but if they can figure out that offense, maybe. I don't think that A.D. Mitchell is a concern. But round 8, Michael Pittman, I don't hate. I think I've bought him twice this year when he's been shitty.
No, similar to what you said when you took Ayuk, it's like, all right, nobody feels great about this guy right now, but the slide has gone on long enough. Like Pittman's a useful player. So he was kind of on my radar with this last couple teams that I had too. And it was like, man, it just feels really gross taking Michael Pittman right now. So
kind of like it does with with Sutton, like an 802. Like yeah, he has been really good this year, but it does not feel great. Like I don't know that I'm going into week 1 super confident that he's going to repeat what he's been doing so far this year.
Right. True. Yeah, definitely. All right, Brian, team 7, you're up.
Again, Yeah, a decent amount of flexibility here. Um, in a sense of when we were if we're drafting this and it's going beyond round 8, I'm assuming that I can get one of those vet quarterbacks to pair with the two like younger volatile guys. So that's kind of my thought process. I'm not going to take them here, but like that is somebody. Those are guys that are definitely on my radar versus like Michael Penix here. I wouldn't go with him in this situation as my third quarterback. But I get the thought process. I'm gonna go. Oh man.
So while you're
If
thinking
this,
of who you're going to take, I'm going to comment on Michael Penix. So you make your
yeah,
decision here. The thing with Michael Penix is that what you're basically drafting is the value gain. Is that as soon as he becomes the starter, he gains value. Well, what happens when he becomes a starter? Where's he going to go? It's probably going to be like right after Baker, like around Bryce Young. As soon as he becomes a starter, maybe a little bit ahead of. I mean, I would say like somewhere in between, like late round 6 or so, the day he becomes the starter. And so by taking him in the middle of round 8 at this point, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. So I think it's probably like round 9 that where it becomes a little bit more worth it, because we also have to remember that it could be like 24 months before that even happens.
yeah. I think a spike in some type of value is likely inevitable. Like it's likely. It's I wouldn't say it's inevitable. And we have quarterbacks in recent memory that I'm not going to talk about too much, but that give that credence. Um, I'm going to take, man. I'm hoping that I can get some value here with this pick. I'm gonna take Debo. I'm hoping that he's unhealthy. I assume he is unhealthy and that he'll have at least a bounce back season. And
Based on his Twitter, he came out and said, "I'm not struggling. Just get me the damn ball." And then I saw that he got community noted
Yeah, I
after
saw
that.
that.
So he tweeted about how he's not struggling, and then he got community noted and said that he leads his team in drops.
you're and your lung is collapsed and you have like just like all this shit. Like, yeah, like I'm banking on that. And if he's not, again, I think at this point it's a valuable enough swing if he were to hit to what he's proven he's capable of before. So I already have proven quarterbacks. Not proven quarterbacks, proven running backs and receivers. That worst case, he's my wide receiver 4. That's not the worst.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good pick. He's probably going somewhere else next year. So,
Yeah.
all right, here's an interesting one. How about we let T. Higgins walk, and then Debo goes and plays with the Bengals?
Well, my only concern there would be fit. Like,
We don't have to belabor that. I'm kind of
Chase
joking.
is just like a monster version of Debo, kind of where like they do a lot of yak stuff.
Let's just move on.
What's okay?
What if Debo goes to New England or something like that with Drake May, and all of a sudden he becomes their very, very clear number 1 and maybe target hog. I mean, I don't know. That's something that is a possibility, right?
That would be interesting. Well, with some of these receivers that have gone recently, Judy, Xavier Worthy, Sutton, Pittman, Debo, the well is kind of drying up. So team 8 here got 3 quarterbacks, Neighbors, Odunze, Tank Dell. I'm going to take one of the last receivers that I do like, that I do think should be drafted in the top 8 rounds. Brian, you and I were kind of on him early this season, saying we like him a lot, and I think people just like him now, and that's Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's just a very safe pick here, production-wise, age-wise, maintain value, where you're not going to ever pay a first for Darnell, but it's hard to get him for like less than an early to mid-second right now from what I've been able to see. So I think he's just a good fit with this roster. And
Matt, yeah, I was gonna say I love this pick for you. With like you have a certain level of volatility with your other 3 receivers, high upside, but all 3 of them have a certain level of like what the heck's going on kind of thing. at times anyways. So like I love this pick because you can kind of stabilize a little bit, and that's what I try and do. You try and have a little yin and yang.
And to me, this team is probably heading towards rebuild city with 3 quarterbacks and the volatility that you mentioned. And so like Darnell Mooney could be a really nice trade chip at some point where you can get, somebody that having some bye or injury issues, and like Mooney's just like producing, and like you're able to move him and get nice return.
I know I'm drafting shitty because Todd keeps telling me every team is a rebuild. So
Well,
I'm like,
every startup that I do, I end up sending into a rebuild, and I love those the startups. So maybe it might be a compliment, and that maybe not a good thing for you because I've had some really bad startups go down.
I hear you. I do think it just there is a lot of flexibility with the start where.
Well, I mean,
if I'm going to compete, I need to do something about running back and tight end. I can't.
It's tough to take 3 QBs in the first 4 rounds. And be hey, I'm one of the best teams in the league. Like,
it's not a short-term play for sure. And it's funny because I was just talking to one of my friends who's just trying to get into Dynasty. He's got his first team. And I just told him like it's a hard game, and there's so many paths that you can choose, right? It's not just like go down this path. Like redraft is like try and win the championship every time and like go for broke. And if you lose, like there's no consequences for next year. You start and try again. Like there's consequences at every corner. So like I think this exercise that we're doing is like showing all of those, potential pitfalls at any given time. Like people are going to look at my roster, your roster, Todd's roster, whichever one, and be like, oh, I don't know about that one, or I love that. And it's going to be polarizing on both sides probably.
Yeah, definitely. Give the people a few different builds to kind of choose from. All right, Todd, you're up with team 9 here.
Yeah, and this team still does not have a quarterback. So it's got 3 receivers, 3 running backs, and Mark Andrews at tight end. So the question here is, does this team take Sam Darnold? I think
that's the name. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's the name that was coming up when I was looking at it.
Yeah, and so I don't think that I'm like you, Matt. I don't think that the Vikings are going to re-sign Sam Darnold. I don't even think it matters what happens the rest of the year. I think he's gone. And what I love so much about what Sam Darnold is enjoying is having Justin Jefferson in that offense, having Kevin O'Connell. I don't think where he goes, he will be very successful. So I don't want anything to do with Sam Darnold, really, but I just like feel obligated to take him here because of build. And so I'm not going to take Sam Darnold. I'm going to let I'm going to let the quarterback position come to me here, and if it means that I wait longer and I end up taking like Russell Wilson later or Derek Carr later, Geno Smith. Maybe you take a Will Levis a lot later and you just hope for 1 year. I just don't think in round 8 I can justify taking a guy like Sam Darnold. And like by week 3 next year, I'm like, I can't even consider playing this guy. And I think that that's a very real possibility with Sam Darnold. So not taking Sam Darnold. I think the fall has gone too far for this guy as well. And that's Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
Shit.
I think we're knocking him a little bit for being injured rest of year. And this doesn't, we're doing this as if we're in the 2025 offseason. I don't know that I would take him a lot higher, but we haven't mentioned him. So maybe that's what we're knocking him for. I think he's very well in the tier, probably alongside going from, I mean, you could say he's in the same tier as like Kupp, who went a full,
round and a half
round. Yeah,
11.
Yeah, 11 picks.
Yeah. And also the one thing that I feel more confident about with Godwin is that it was a broken foot or broken bone.
Broken ankle, right?
Broken ankle, yeah. And not a torn ligament, not a torn ACL. So I feel better about that.
So that was my one
injuries, but yeah.
So that was my concern with Godwin. Like obviously he got hurt. When I heard it was like a broken, dislocated ankle, whatever, it didn't sound that bad to me. The medical people say it's really bad. Like not as bad as ACL or Achilles, but like he's not going to be right week 1 supposedly next year. Nobody knows. I guess like he should play, so it's not like an ACL or Achilles. But I've heard it's going to affect him for like the next year. I don't like who knows how these guys rebound, but I think that like it's not just like a 6 to 8 week injury from what I understand, but it's also
Okay,
not an
so
injury.
I'm just doing a quick Google here. And
Yeah.
after it happened, so this was October 29th, he says best case scenario would be return in time for the playoffs. Also, I'm seeing this was a report maybe 8 days ago that it's a 10 to 12 week injury. Now, I don't expect him to come back in the playoffs and be like a normal Chris Godwin, but it gives me optimism that week 1 next year, maybe he is okay. But
If he,
I think before you hit select on Chris Godwin, maybe do a Google search and check and see what people are saying about the injury he had is probably the
I
advice
mean,
I'd give.
if he's like, even if they're vaguely talking about him, it's not 100% ruled out that he couldn't make a playoff return. Like that speaks to like how far along in his rehab that he'll be right by the beginning of the season. Like I
I
would
would hope
assume,
so, yeah.
like say he doesn't play in whatever situation this season, cool. I'd prefer that personally if I were drafting him,
Right,
or
yeah.
even if I had him on my team, in general. And he's going to, you're going to get again those hype videos probably of training and like looking good and all that stuff that people get excited about. And it's somebody that again you're buying in the 8th round that if people see that he's starting week 1, like it might be all of a sudden like rounds 5 to 7 Godwin because he was electric this year. So like there's that possible outcome as well.
Yeah, and I think that this is probably about where he should go as of today. But like, if I am on the clock and I'm considering taking Cup, Judy, Sutton, Pittman, some of these guys, instead of clicking their name, I'm probably seeing can I trade back and end up taking Godwin and getting some sort of plus. Obviously, we all want to trade back, and like it doesn't always end up being possible. Sometimes you just got to hit click. I would rather just take Cup than Godwin probably, but I think isn't Godwin like 3 years younger than Cup? So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I
I
think
would.
so. 2
Maybe
or
I would.
3.
I don't know that. But yeah, I think Godwin. We probably gave him a little bit of much of an injury
So
downgrade.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
my last team here: Burrow, Wilson, Brian Thomas, Dak, Flowers, Henry, Cup. I'm going to go Juwan Jennings here.
That's what I was going to take next.
I think he's the best wide receiver on the board.
Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about him for a little while, and it didn't feel comfortable until right now.
Yeah.
But it's again an upside swing. He's looked pretty damn good. We talked about Debo potentially changing teams. We talked about Ayuk's. Who knows what his recovery time is if he's ever the same? That could all of a sudden be the wide receiver 1 on a Shanahan offense. That's valuable.
Jennings is going to be a major value, I think, early in the offseason when you're doing drafts because his ADP is likely to be pretty low. And people, kind of like Darnell Mooney, they're going to dismiss him because of the name. They're like, well, definitely I'm taking like Michael Pittman and Debo and Chris Godwin and Cup and maybe like Keon Coleman. Taking all of these, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. Like I'm taking all of these guys ahead of him because of their name. Like they're clearly better. But I mean, I think that you can make the case Jennings round 7 is justifiable.
Yep.
I think, I mean, he is just dominating targets right now. And he was also doing a lot of it even before that. Wasn't Ayuk healthy and he was kind of already doing some of this stuff?
Yeah, the first time I think that Debo went down for whatever injury or sickness he had like a massive game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could end up being just like he could just be like one of those late bloomer / was stuck behind some guys and just be a absolute steal at this spot.
Awesome that he has that contract too. He's got like 2 more years under that deal.
I
I
believe
need to
so.
check that.
At,
But
at least next year, but yeah, might be 2 years because I know he did sign a short extension, which surprised a lot of people.
yeah,
All right, so Team 11 here has Love and Hurts, McBride, Smith, Downs, JMO, Mixon. This pick, I'm looking at a few different guys here. One of them that I'm not going to pick, that we have not mentioned his name all night. I would consider Jacoby Myers coming up here. I think he's very underrated. I think he kind of belongs with this wide receiver group that we're drafting right now. He's been awesome since the Raiders traded Devontae. Couple running backs I'm looking at, but I'm not going to take here. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, a pair of teammates that I think both are really not really good. Both are good running backs, good real life running backs. Najee, I think, has had arguably one of his best years, if not statistically, just eye test wise. He's played really well. Jalen Warren, they could move on from Najee. So Warren obviously has flashed a lot in a limited role. But I'm just going to take what I think is the biggest home run swing on the board value-wise. Guy we've talked about a little bit. Maybe block Team 12 from taking this quarterback. And I'm going to take Michael Penix here. Out of everybody left on the board, I think he has the best chance of gaining value to get into like a top 4-round pick.
yeah.
And so right now I'm just going to that's really the only justification for it. It doesn't fit my team build whatsoever, but I just think it's the biggest home run swing, and I like taking those near like the end of the 8th round of startups.
Yeah, and I know Brian, you didn't say his name, but I know it happened to Trey Lance, and but it did. I don't know that Trey Lance is even applicable because Trey Lance was like a round 1 startup pick at times, like round 2 startup pick. Like the value went up without him even really getting on the field. Obviously, the bottom fell out, but I think Penix is inevitably. There will be a game where Kirk Cousins gets hurt at some point, and like just that one fill-in game, he's going to go up in value because people are like, "Ew, do I want to buy in before he starts going up in value?" And maybe
So-
you just get out at that point.
Another example, Will Levis, right? Like obviously we saw a spike there.
Yeah. If he comes out and throws like 3 touchdowns his first game,
I mean, boom,
that spike can
round 4 or
happen,
5.
and it can also come crashing down to earth very quickly as well, right? So like I guess that's the volatility. If you're speaking to simply like take Penix because he at some point is going to have that value spike that you can sell him, and that's I'm cool with that part of it, but I don't think that like value is like insulated for very long.
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not
without actual production. So
it's definitely not. It's not going to be long withstanding unless he does something.
Yeah, definitely not.
All right,
Todd, you're up with the last team, Team 12.
Yeah, this team's got 4 wide receivers. It's got 3 running backs. So this team does have Olave and Ayuk, both Olave coming back from the concussion stuff. Ayuk, who I'm really not going to be relying on much next year. But we got 3 running backs. I feel pretty good about this team's ability to score points alongside ARSB and Puka. But there's no quarterback. There's no tight end. And the tight ends available are pretty bleak.
Dalton Kincaid is the biggest name.
But Dalton Kincaid is still sitting there available. And at some point, I think that becomes pretty decent. So we're going to take Dalton Kincaid here.
Okay.
I think we're all kind of I think we're all out on Dalton Kincaid, but at the 8-12, like
I like him here.
If I can get like a low end, like a tight end 12 type guy, and maybe there's upside. When I watch Dalton Kincaid, I'm fairly confident that there's no upside, that he's like a tight end 12 type guy, but I've been wrong on a whole lot of players, and so maybe I'm wrong about Dalton Kincaid.
There isn't risk, but that there's also I don't think it's a coincidence that I just let out a massive yawn, and it was totally unintentional. It was not trolling the pick. It just is a yawn for me. Dalton Kincaid. no thanks. But I get it. At this point, there's not a lot of risk. You have some upside. Obviously, the offense, Josh Allen. That's cool.
Yeah, I think the other
Yeah,
tight end
so-
that you could have looked at here would be Evan Ingram. And I think that would be another viable one. I think he and Evan Ingram are fairly comparable. Obviously, Evan Ingram's quite a bit older. And it's in a tight end premium. I do like Ingram a bit with like as many catches as he does.
I'm thinking Kelsey, Jonnu, Ferguson, like all of those guys to me are like could be in this range. I could see justification for this range. Honestly.
Yeah, so like, does this team just skip tight end another round? Maybe that's the better route for this team. Skip tight end for another round, and maybe you get like on the next on like the end of the 10th and the 11-1, you go like Cole Kmet or maybe you get like an older tight end alongside later. Maybe you get Ben Sinnott. Maybe you get like a Hunter Henry later, and you just like you're awesome at every position except for tight end, but you load up with several tight. Maybe your build is to load up with several tight ends, and you like there was a few teams early in the year where I had an influx of tight ends. Like I had a team with like maybe 4 really solid tight ends. Maybe like my tight end 4 was Cole Kmet coming into the year. And I was like, okay, who can I sell Cole Kmet to? Obviously, Cole Kmet has flopped, but coming into the year, maybe like he's projected 10, 12 points a game. And I saw some teams where they had like no viable tight end, but the tight ends that they ended up having were like Isaiah Likely, Tucker Kraft, and like a Jonnu. And like it ended up working out for that guy. That guy ended up with like Isaiah Likely for the first few weeks, Tucker Kraft for the next few weeks, and now he's got Jonnu. And he's just like, why would I trade Cole Kmet early in the year when I got these guys? And so maybe that's a nice build. So like if you're gonna miss out on Bowers McBride, you're missing out on Laporta, Kittle, Hawk, and then you've missed out on Andrews, Njoku, Tucker Kraft. Maybe the next move is to just say screw tight end. Starting in like round 11 or so, I'm going to get like 3 of my next 5 picks are going to be tight end. And maybe I'm going to take 2 more dart throws later. I'm going to have like 5 that are just like, bleh. But by week 6, maybe I know who my starter is.
That was Ferguson. That was Dalton Schultz in the past. That was Tucker Kraft. Like there's plenty of outcomes that we've had in recent memory that like turn into those. That's Jonnu. Like all of those guys that are just like tack-ons or free agent ads, even that become something. So
maybe this guy's older, but like you can get Hunter Henry and like you're doing okay.
Yeah, and here's another player that I hate and I troll some people about, but like Zach Ertz, like just like there's all these guys that like you can find production. If that's your ultimate goal is like short term.
You can
production.
find the 5 for 40 that Dalton Kincaid is giving you.
Yeah, it's like John Goodman in The Big Lebowski. Like, dude, you need a tight end? I could get you a tight end. I could get you a tight end by 3:00 this afternoon, dude.
With that said, I would like to be the only person allowed to renege on my Dalton Kincaid pick, and I'm gonna give myself the authority to do that, just so that we can make this draft board look a little better. And so we're taking Dalton Kincaid off the board. If you quit looking at the draft, if you quit watching the draft, we have you're gonna be surprised when you come back and see that Dalton Kincaid is gone.
Oops. All right. Oh no. All right. Cool.
We're back.
And the draft
Kincaid, get out of here.
And we're back. All right. We figured out how to remove a guy without going.
All right. Dalton Kincaid is officially gone. So who are we closing this thing out with? Not a tight end, obviously.
That would be hilarious. John.
Yeah. I think Ramondre Stevenson remains fairly underrated. I really thought that Juwan Jennings was going to make it to me on this pick. I think Ramondre Stevenson remains pretty underrated.
Yeah,
so
he's a guy I missed.
Let's go Ramondre Stevenson, the 4th running back, and now this team is ready to kind of just be awesome across the board at running back, wide receiver, and flex.
Do you before we wrap here, do we want to talk about some guys since we may not do a 9 to 12 unless people again really want it? Who are some guys that are like top of mind that we're looking at? Like not team build, just like
Yeah.
that round 9 group of guys.
So the one guy that I had where I'm not convinced this guy is bad. I think he might be pretty good. So if you're looking for like a potential big value bump, Keon Coleman has not been drafted yet, and he's hurt right now. But he is tied to Josh Allen, and he has flashed some big playability. So he's a guy I'm looking at. Xavier Legette, I think, should probably get drafted in the next round or so.
Not by me.
I do like Legette, but it would have helped if he held on to that touchdown the last game he played. But
I'm not saying in round 9, but I think these teams that don't have quarterbacks, I think Russell Wilson's an interesting one. He's been pretty awesome for them. I think that he probably runs it back as the quarterback again next year. I don't really see any reason why I would want to take Sam Darnold that much further ahead of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I'm with you on being skeptical of Darnold, but like if he has figured a few things out, I mean, he's what, like 28, 27?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm taking him this round for sure.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think and then Geno Smith, I think is definitely a good quarterback. He's only.
I think Geno is coming up.
Geno and Stafford would be on my radar. We don't know how like longevity of Stafford's rest of his career, I guess, but like as long as he's around, like that offense when healthy is explosive. Obviously, a great coach. Couple of receivers that were already mentioned, but Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, just like Mike Evans, those 3 guys still being out there is like, it's pretty cool. Charbot, like we talked about, like I think this is the time where I'm starting to think about Charbot versus an Aaron Jones, or I'd maybe consider James Conner above Charbot, but like depending on build, obviously. But
Conner was another guy I had kind of.
Team 3 only has Jefferson and Waddle, so like if they can get Adams in this round, I think that would be a pretty nice get as a wide receiver 3 for that team.
Yeah.
And another guy that I think you could maybe wait around, depending on if you're drafting right now compared to he still has 4 games left to maybe boost his value. But like, I don't know, if we're talking about buying into Jerry Jeudy, I'm kind of buying into Cedric Tillman. He was doing awesome before he got hurt with Jameis Winston. And yeah, he didn't do shit his first year and a half of his career, whatever. But like, Jeudy didn't do a whole lot either. He did a little bit more. He was a higher pedigree player. But Tillman just came right out of the gate after the Murray trade and started commanding a lot of routes, targets, made some big plays. So
yeah,
I think flyer.
He is. I think he's like the tweener between like people were just like they saw Nico's emergence, so they were like, oh, he's Nico part 2. He's somewhere in between Nico and Treylon Burks, and we gotta figure out what the where
somewhere between wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 300. I would agree. Exactly. I tend to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I think with Tillman,
but like we quickly just like attached him to Nico Collins. I guess that's
I think the thing with Tillman is the second game before he got hurt, he had the 3 for 47 game, which kind of left a bad taste in people's mouth. And the game before the game he got hurt, I think didn't he have a fumble or something in that game? And then obviously it wasn't a very good game prior to getting hurt. He only played like half the game, so that hurt. That kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths. But you're right, Matt. I think that he should probably be coming up here soon, and he may be a guy that I'm looking to go buy before he comes back, because I think you make a good point that we probably dismissed him just because he had like one bad game. Like, is the dude not allowed to have a bad game? He had 3 amazing games prior to that.
Todd, actually, I was going to say Todd, but I have a feeling both of you, I know what your answer is going to be on this. this is not a guy that I would expect to get drafted in the next round. Probably not the next 2 rounds. How far down are we going to knock Jonathan Brooks?
It's funny you say that. So I have ranking for like 1 through 300. Now I have missed obviously a few here and there. Like I missed Bryce Young. I had him in the dollar range, but I knocked Brooks down to like the $4 range, which is
I was gonna say
basically
$4,
like a mid to late second or so. And so you're looking at like a Cedric Tillman, somewhere in that range, I would say. So I'm glad you brought up Brooks. Really cool question there. Is that a guy that you would want to try to get on the Hubbard team at cost? Obviously, I'm not saying draft him around ahead, but like, if you're sitting there and it's like Brooks or DeAndre Swift, or maybe not even DeAndre Swift, like Brooks or
it's funny that we haven't mentioned
Tank
Swift
Bigsby.
yet.
Brooks or Tank Bigsby, would you take Brooks with the Hubbard team?
I think I'd rather have Bigsby. I don't know. It's close. Like the back-to-back ACL tears is just so goddamn brutal. And it's not just an ACL. This is recent injury with Brooks. It was ACL, MCL, and PCL, which is like one of I think. Or never mind. I'm thinking of the Dallas guy that just got hurt, overshown. So never mind. I think it's just an ACL. But back-to-back ACLs, I don't know, man.
It's too much of a risk that he could be a total zero at this point for me.
Yeah.
And he hasn't shown us at the NFL level, like the Christian McCaffrey is the popular narrative of like injury prone guy, but we've seen what he produces that again, the juice is worth the squeeze. Yeah. I don't want to be a part of something that we haven't seen on the field. Or J.K. Dobbins is another good one. Like we at least saw it on the field at some point at the NFL level.
Yeah.
I'm gonna recant my like mid-second value. I'm gonna say he's like late second value. Like if I have him, I want like he's my value, my buy and sell price is gonna be just so drastic with him. Like I would need a mid-second to move him. I'll just hold him for the next 18 months if I have to. So I need a mid-second to move him, but I'm not sending away any second for him. Like I'll on draft day though, when I'm on the clock at like 3:03 and I'm like, which one of these idiots do I want to take? And there's some guy that's like, hey, I really want your pick. Who do I need to give you so I can draft my favorite player? All right, you can give me Jonathan Brooks for him. I'll sit on him for the next 18 months if I have to. That might be something that's of interest to me.
Yeah, I think that would be like the type of team I'm looking to acquire. Brooks is not really like in a startup, but like I have like a couple teams that like I fucked up and I'm like in the second year of a long rebuild. I know I'm gonna not compete until 2026.
Yep.
So maybe on those teams I look at trading a very late second for him or something like that.
Yeah. All right, we've gone like almost 2.5 hours here. So if you made it to the
our longest pod ever,
definitely.
You made it to the Jonathan Brooks. Is he worth the 303 talk? More power to you.
Yeah.
So you can find this on YouTube, like we said. We'll have it in a screenshot on Twitter. You can find Matt on Twitter at Dynasty Peasant. You can find Brian at Brian_O'Leary1, and you can find me, Todd, at Dynasty S Flex. Thanks for joining.